Alchemy presents the astounding show in which we say things, and you also say things in a textual form. We read those things and then react to them. It's BREADCAST, and now here are your hosts, the readers of things that you type, and talkers of words, EJ and Luna! Hello, and welcome back to another episode of BREADCAST from Non-Compete and Luna Oi. Exciting announcement. Luna Oi now has, what do you call it?
Camaraderie?
No, that's another exciting announcement.
YouTube member.
New YouTube membership. We're trying this new thing. It's a test pilot.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's going to be cool or not, but Luna found out she had YouTube memberships unlocked on her channel. So now you can become a member on YouTube. You can also, it's like, there's all these different...
Fuzzy, static.
Huh?
Lots of audio buzz.
One time I don't... The one time
you...
I have been wearing my headphones like every time. I don't know where they went.
Mine.
Mother.
Fucker.
Whoa, Luna. There goes the monetization. Thanks. There's a reason I didn't say it. Yeah, that is a buzz, isn't it?
Hey.
Hold on, folks.
Much
Working on
better
it.
now.
Well,
Is it? Stop.
Okay, I'm hearing it, but we got to get...
That's on our side.
All right, well,
Well,
let me find my headphones because I don't like flying without a parachute. Where did my headphones go? You don't see them?
I don't.
They're right there behind your computer. Will you reach behind?
Why are they behind my
Can you give me a reach around, Luna? I said sincerely and with no lewd intent. All right, everybody, just bear with us. So,
I'm so
look,
sorry.
I know that this is annoying. This is the kind of thing that okay, sounds okay. All right. So as far as this whole, all right, starting all over again.
Take two.
The kind of thing that annoys me is capitalism, because it talks about how it's got all these solutions, but it really creates so many problems. Because when you think about things like, first of all, you could use the example of like chat programs and social media. In a non-capitalist world, it seems to me very obvious that it would be very easy to just take your Facebook Messenger, your Discord, your Twitter DMs, your Google Chat, your Slack, whatever, all those things, and you could funnel those all into like one app that would like, through an API, have it all available in like one command system, like one master system, whatever you want to call it. And capitalism precludes that because nobody wants to play with anybody else. Like Twitter doesn't want you getting your Facebook DMs on Twitter. They don't want, and it's also like, there's other nefarious ways. Yeah, the competition fucks us over. Like, look at I could say fuck now since Luna said it. Also, when you try to share like YouTube videos on Twitter or Facebook, they kill them. They make the thumbnails really small and they kill them in the algorithm. It's so obnoxious, and that's all because of capitalism. And then this is like another manifestation of that. So like, some people have asked us, why don't you turn on YouTube channel memberships? We would like to do that, specifically for Luna, because she gets a lot of YouTube viewers on her streams. So we're like, okay, well, people want that, so we turned it on. But it's like, I know it's annoying, because now we have to be like, you can support us on YouTube membership. You could support us on Patreon. Now, and this is actually really cool, though, unironically and with no reservation, camaraderie.co. You can support us on Camaraderie now, which is a cooperatively owned, anti-capitalist, anti-fascist platform, which is probably the best place to support, but except for the fact that it's an alpha site, so it's an alpha mode, so alpha testing. So we can't do like private perks or whatever yet. It's just all public, and it's just basically like a donation box for now. Although they're going to keep, it will be like Patreon with like the inside access and stuff like that eventually. But anyway, it makes me feel very obnoxious to be like, you could support. It takes like 10 minutes. It's like, you could support us on YouTube channel memberships and Luna Oi. You could support us on Camaraderie. You could support us on Patreon. It's like capitalism makes this, because there should be just like one, because we've also got LiberaPay, we've got Ko-Fi, because like all these people, Ko-Fi, Ko-Fi, I don't know how you say that, but
I don't even know how to say it.
Anyway, and it's like, because different people prefer different platforms, and that's understandable and blah, 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 but I guess there's like you could do Linktree, I guess we could do Linktree. I should probably do that. I don't know. But like, it's not satisfying. I want a post-capitalist world immediately so I don't have to go through all this stuff. Anyway, what's the point of all this? Of saying all this. RSS clients are still a thing.
Hairstyle.
RSS clients are still a thing, and I heavily endorse RSS. And in fact, if you are constantly having trouble, like I do, with YouTube unsubscribing you from channels or not giving you notifications or whatever, YouTube has RSS unless they've changed it, and you can subscribe to channels through RSS, and that's what I do with my phone, and then I never miss any notifications. So I definitely recommend you look into learning about it. It's very simple. It's what we used before all this social media nonsense of the capitalist world. And basically, there used to be a great Google RSS client, and they killed it because they didn't want people to have that much control over their own algorithms.
Of course. Yep.
Anyway, all this is warming up. We're just warming up here, folks.
So you like my new hairstyle?
The point was that Luna got something. Yes, Luna got YouTube channel memberships. Wow, how did you change your hair that fast? You changed your entire look while I was ranting, and I didn't even notice it. And then I looked over, and you're like a different person. Pretty hot.
Should I decorate it with just keep talking, keep ranting.
Luna's having a makeover mid-rant.
Mm-hmm.
RSS Pog, you knows the way. All right, so yeah, you could see the cool thing about RSS is you can have your podcasts, blogs, YouTube subscriptions, everything in one place. It's very, very cool for people like me who are kind of like content agnostic. We are going to be talking about leftist morality here.
Yeah.
We're just going to warm up into it. We got a few other things to talk about first. But I think that Luna, just as a little preview, as a little teaser, I think that this is my new calling in life, Luna. The more I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
This is like I'm starting to realize that this is the biggest problem in the Western left, I think, as far as getting our shit together. And it comes down to viewpoint crisis and questions of morality.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, and I'm just starting to wrap my head around it. But I think that hopefully with the audience's input, we can make some progress today in understanding these ideas and starting to find some solutions. So we will be talking about morality very shortly here. Let me look at my show notes. Some things just to warm us up. I have a funny thing, Luna, that I found.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me find it. Oh, it's not in my... Okay. I found it. Found it. So this is from an old Nintendo game.
Mm-hmm.
This is just silly. It has nothing to do with politics at all, but I think it's very funny. So there's this old... Oh, shoot. Not what I wanted to do. I want the image. Open image in new tab. Okay. So this is a Japanese...
Luna.
What? Luna, I know this is not on topic, but I respect your fashion sense. Yeah, Luna's got drip. No doubt about it. Incontrovertible. Well, you need to open your Stream Elements too.
I do, yes.
You do. So this is from somebody found this old 80s Japanese video game. And in the video game, they had to create like a bunch of player names. So this is like a Japanese programmer's like just came up with, okay, it's like, like, you know how like, I don't know, in a lot of like, especially older, they've gotten a little bit better about it, but like in older American movies and cartoons and stuff, they would make up like a Japanese sounding name, but it like doesn't make sense in Japanese at all, right? They did that with the Ninja Turtles a lot. They would have like characters whose names were like two first names or like a last name and then the name of a place or whatever. It just sounds cool in English. So this is a Japanese person came up with a bunch of American names, like just names that he thought sounded American, and I thought it was so funny. So we've got, here's the lineup: Sleeve McDykel, Anson Sweeney, Daryl Archideld, Anatoly Smorin, Ray McSriff. Not a single one of these is real. Glenn
They
Allen.
look like it. Mario
Mario McGurlwain, Glenn Allen Mixon, Raoul Chamberlain, Kevin Nagilny, Tony Schmerich, Bobson Dugnut. Bobson Dugnut. That's my next D&D character's name.
Bobson Dugnut.
Willie Dustis, Jeremy Gride, Scott Dork, Sean Furcoat, Dean Wesry, Mike Truck, Dwight Rorchagall, Tim Sandaly, Carl Sandleton, Mike Cernandez, and Todd Gonzalez.
Okay, so what's the winner here?
I think Bobson Dugnut is my character.
Bobson Dugnut.
Which character do you choose? I choose Bobson Dugnut. Who are you gonna be?
I can be like, Scott Dork.
Scott Dork.
Dork.
It's just great. It's great to see like us get a taste of our own medicine. Now, do you say
this racism?
No, well, that's what I was just about to say. It's like, it's a taste of our own medicine, really.
Exactly.
It's like, this is what we do to Asian languages all the time.
This is Germany's being racist to white people.
It's so funny. It's like, it shows you how, well, okay, here, this is a related news story, actually. Have you seen this? I don't know. I don't like to make fun of people. I'm not making fun of this person.
Yeah.
But I think it's related.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Have you seen,
I like it.
No, I'm talking about something else. There's this guy.
Wait a minute to add into it. Do you know how Vietnamese we like trying to mimic English? My aunts did this for
because
EJ.
Luna's aunts tease me with it all the time. This is so to a Vietnamese ear, English sounds like
this. Silo silo, silo 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 silo. So, that's how my aunts describe EJ's story.
I am a victim of reverse racism because every time I go to Luna's parents' house for Tet or whatever, her aunts mercilessly tease me by looking me in the eye and going, "Silo, silo, 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 silo," and like laughing openly at me. It's like if they hear me speaking English, they just make fun of the way the English sounds and they go, "Silo, silo, silo, silo." And a lot of fragile white people would be like, "That's reverse racism. It's inappropriate." It's funny though. It's hilarious. It's like because it's like again, it's leveling the playing field in my mind because come on. White people have been doing that to fucking everyone for hundreds of years. It's like evening the scales. Is there anybody who's seriously offended that Luna's aunts make fun of English at me? If you are, call yourself out. Let's have an intervention.
They sound flat and monotone to a Vietnamese
That's a good question.
Because it like so absolutely.
Because we have tones for like inflection.
But to us, it is the tone of the sentences, not the tones of the words. So we don't consider them tones.
Right.
So that is why when you listen into like even like when the Vietnamese news like ngày hôm nay chúng ta đã đến đây và chào mừng tất cả mọi người đã tham gia cuộc họp internet này. So like so when we
because that's how English sounds to you.
Exactly. So like internet, website, something like that. So like when Vietnamese speak English while we were speaking Vietnamese, we would like slowly and say it with no tone, sound exactly like a bunch of robots.
Right.
It's like blah, blah, internet, blah.
This would be a good time for you to show the video of the Vietnamese girl that pretends to speak English.
Oh yeah.
There's this.
Yeah.
Like Vietnamese student. She's probably 30 now. I don't know. This is like a 10-year-old video.
She's now an official reporter.
Luna's typing.
Reporter.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
Luna's typing in hot girl in YouTube. Are you sure that you're following the assignment?
That's her.
Is that the original video?
Mm. Now she become the official news reporter.
That's amazing. Is that it?
Her, yes.
No, that's it. Yeah. That's the original video, right? Okay. Share it on StreamYard.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Share. Oh my gosh, this is like watching my grandma. Go to Chrome tab. Luna's like, mouse is so slow. All right. Criminy. All right, here we go. Maximize.
Oh, this is a new one. When she like years later, she came back to.
Oh, this is a redo.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's watch it.
Do you want to watch it on one?
I don't care.
The original one.
Does it have English in it? That's the question. I don't want to spend a lot of time, so.
Okay, keep talking.
I don't have anything else to say. I'm waiting for you to play the video. I could talk about it totally. Well, you're on screen, you know. Let me take you off screen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Take me off the screen.
Let me know when you find it. What?
Okay.
Why is it so hard to find?
It's so long time ago, you know.
Put original. Type in Vietnamese original.
Oh, I will tell you her name.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a related. What I'm going to talk about is more serious. Okay, finally. Jeez Louise. Okay,
Jesus
here we go.
Louise.
Yeah.
Jesus Louise. That's like totally. That's really funny for reasons that I don't want to explain.
What?
Because Jeez Louise is supposed to be a word that you use so you avoid saying Jesus,
sure.
but you're like Jesus. It's a basic
So okay.
comedy
Let's
rule.
watch it, everybody.
All right, here we go. This is kind of funny.
This is a high school girl.
ท้าย
Okay.
เราสวัสดีค่ะนักไหลชักเกลือมาเลยนะสึกเกลือ
Thailand.
Thai language.
สวัสดีสลัดประชายน้องสมันเนิบพิจารณาค่ายสิกระตัวสิกระมาทรายมันจะเติมมาสักกันเนิบขวักร่างกระชานซึ่ง
It doesn't have any meaning. She's just like,
Yeah, she's just-
청소년데
Oh, this is Korean.
그것만 가면 안 돼서 근데 아도 그런데요? 네 지금 비그만 놓고 수나 죽고난데
There's a few real Korean words in there.
죽고난데였어 죽고난데 앞으로 이 책을 버렸어?
앞으로.
나 근데 언제나요?
tiếng Trung là
Chinese.
是人道吗？是人道非请科，是人道
Luna speaks Chinese.
yes, I can recognize some words. 大家好 is a real like.
是人道，
Hello, everyone.
是人类比生，没变，没变，只好人倒怕是人倒没性格，是人倒我是皇上路哥。没关系，性格是可可能够是的有本
I love that she's a real news reporter now.
tiếng
Like,
Nhật là
that's a great character arc.
Japanese.
Amo kuzu ina mo sumot sawas. Ida kri ezemo to puro zuma puro Romi.
It's like a real, like she has a good ear. You know, you have to have.
Yeah.
I want the English. When's the English come up?
English.
It's
Okay, this is
to read this dictionary and a vertical average is like you have read this like it's vertical show, it's like an average show, it's vertical average says everything is vertical average, it's vertical average, it's all like this, all like that. But it's portioner or in the category if it's taken there's portioners and it's vertical like for you guys.
It's like a fucking, it's like a very specific like American California like valley. I just wanted to hear the English really.
This
So.
is Italian.
Oh, Italian. Do one more. The English is the best. The English is, at least to me. It's kind of funny. All right. So anyway, that was a nice little diversion.
Yeah.
It's Simlish. You're right. It does sound like Simlish. It makes you. It's like so disorienting because it sounds like you should be able to understand it and you can't.
Yeah, but like our brain like I struggle a lot when I listen to like her Chinese version, her English version because like it must make some sense. No.
Oh, that's pretty funny. And then the other thing is like there's this. I don't know. I was just thinking about this because I saw somebody talking about it on a podcast the other day, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody or anything, but there's this. I don't even think I'll show pictures because it's not really relevant. But there's this British person, this British. I guess like influencer or whatever, who has gotten a lot of plastic surgery to look like a Korean pop star.
Oh yeah.
And what's interesting to me about it is just that everyone acts like all these people, like the podcast I was watching and all the reactions I've seen and stuff, they act like this person's like so out of his mind and like completely off the deep end. But like whenever Asian people or black people or whatever do anything to modify their look to look more white, it's like totally normal.
Yeah, they consider that it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Or something.
And I just find it, I mean, I'm not making a judgment whether or not it's like problematic or whatever for this person to try to look Korean. That's not the discussion I'm saying. I'm talking about like the meta around it, which is that it's like it's considered like mental illness to want to look not white. But then when all these other people are wanting to look white, it's like totally normalized. I just think that's kind of related. I don't know. I thought that would be something to. English is the best. God damn it! Someone's gonna clip that and call me a fucking
Oops.
chauvinist. English is not the best language, but it is the best language to make fun of. I think so.
Yeah.
So all right, let's see. I think we kind of milked that subject for all it's worth. What did Javi say about Basque in Spanish? I'd be curious to know about that. It seems messed up anyway. I'm like, again, I'm not defending or saying anything judgmental about what the guy is doing. So please, it's like, I'm not talking about what the guy's doing and whether that's good or bad or whatever. That's not the judgment I'm talking about. I'm talking about our reaction. It's like you have to be crazy to want to look not white. But whenever all these people are getting plastic surgery and stuff to look more white, it's totally normalized. That's the point I'm trying to make. And I'm talking about society, not this individual. So it's very difficult whenever we talk about social issues, the focus always goes to the individual, but that's not what I'm talking about. And if they were, again, I'm not judging the person's intentions or mindset or whatever. I'm not saying that it's great that they're doing that. It's not my point.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be their reaction. Lasu. EJ, that has a long history of POC being shamed into acting white rather than being who they are. My grandma lived through that. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that in our society, it's completely normalized. Do I have to say it again? Did I make my point?
You made your
Okay.
point very clear.
Hopefully people get what I'm saying. I'm not making about it.
Nobody's like judging anything that person. We're talking about the reaction.
I'm not saying
of
that they
white
did good. I'm not
people.
saying they did bad. I don't really care.
Exactly.
I'm not interested
The
in what this
reaction of
person did
white
that much.
people.
But yeah. Okay. So anyway, Dimitri said, thank you for the super chat. Said, hey, brothers and sisters, hope all is well. Greg, why is that? Is that your signature?
Greg.
Or are you just like extra? Is this message extra for Greg? I don't know.
Thank you so much for the super chat.
All right. Moving on.
This donation.
We got a donation. Oh, Matthew. Thank
Yeah.
you for the donation. Hey, comrades. Thanks for all you do. It's truly inspiring. I always feel like when we get a message like that, I have to make it clear that like this is actually very much like a group effort because we get so much from the audience and we get so much from our people that we talk to on the.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that you like in what we're doing, then we don't take any credit for that because
Yeah.
like.
We don't take any credit
Yeah,
for
we
any
get-
of our ideas or something because like we all got inspired
Yeah.
by other comrades. So we don't own any ideas.
I get emails from
Take it,
people all
just
the
use it.
time who are like giving me ideas and input, and I get
Yeah.
obviously great. Like some of the comments, like for all the complaining I do about shitty YouTube comments, I get some that are really thought provoking and
Yeah.
point me to like different things I would never have heard about anyway.
And about me, about my situation,
Yeah.
like like I am a non-native speaker, so
Mhm.
of course, like eventually I would make like mistake, like misspell a word or use the wrong word unintentionally. And seriously, like I have so many good comrades that like they took it in like a very good faith, and they trying to like they message me on Discord or direct message or send me emails to say like, hey Luna. Just be careful with this that like so like instead of like making like a big drama of it, they like try to help
yeah,
me,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
really appreciate
Right.
that.
Yeah. This is funny though. In that super chat, when it said Greg, it was actually GR for Greek. I guess those were emojis that didn't come through StreamYard properly.
Oh.
So it was Greek flag, Egyptian flag,
Oh.
but it just looked like all caps in like small letters.
yeah
Greg.
yeah.
So
Greg.
it looked like a signature line. Okay. Your English is great, Luna. I agree with subliminal line.
Aw, I still have accent though. I still have trouble though. But the thing that I think that I developed a lot through time is my confidence.
Right.
I used to like terribly lack of confidence to speak English, but now I'm just like, fuck it.
All right, what else do we have in the show notes? I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to dig into the big meaty juicy topic.
Just show the fun music video. Why not?
What music video?
The Bella Ciao video.
Where is
I
it?
got it in the show note.
Oh, Bella Ciao. Okay.
Mhm. It's-
Are you sure we're not going to get copyright
It's
clipped
from,
for this?
It's from TikTok. I don't think so.
I hope not. So this is a TikTok from We Do Love This.
We do love this a lot.
I'm trying to decide.
Relax, have fun.
Should we show the whole thing or just like encourage people to go watch it? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's only a minute long. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how TikTok works with copyright. But
As far
I just don't
as
want to get
I
the stream
know,
taken.
there's no law yet.
There's no law. There's one law. It's the policy. All right. Anyway,
Policy.
here's the video. This is a really great rendition of Bella Ciao that we wanted to show. And the TikTok is, what's the account? I can't read. I think it's Indie Lovu Youth Choir. It's just the font is very small, so I can't.
Yeah.
Indie Lovu Youth Choir, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully people can read that better than I can. is so amazing. Like, the costumes, the
dancing,
the
background.
singing, and the freaking scenery is just amazing. They look like they're in a freaking, I don't know, like, this is real, but you just found us on Twitter, right? The thing about TikTok though, when sometimes they use copyrighted music.
I think this is their own version of music. So it's very unique.
Well, that's it. So if you want to watch more of that, you could check out the again, it's at Indie Lovu Youth Choir. Check that out. All right. And the song is Bella Ciao.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I'll send a link. There's a tweet. We got it from a tweet, but hopefully you can track it to its original source on TikTok. I'll share that in the chat now. Okay. That was fun. And then I had another link. Well, we have some links about like the drone striking, the lies about drone striking. You know about the so first in Afghanistan they drone struck the family with the 3 children, which some Western chauvinist quote unquote leftists have said was justified. I can't see how it was. And now I want to see how they justify this. You've heard about this, Lena? This is just, I mean, they lied about it too. So first of all, there was a U.S. drone strike. They said it was to stop a car bomb, but in fact, it was a freaking aid worker. Totally innocent person. 20-year, let's see. It was the last known missile fired by the United States in a 20-year war in Afghanistan, and the military called it a righteous strike. A drone attack after hours of surveillance on August 29th against a vehicle that American details thought contained an ISIS bomb and posed an imminent threat to troops at Kabul's airport. But a New York Times investigation of video evidence, along with interviews with more than a dozen of the drivers, co-workers, and family members in Kabul, raised doubts about the U.S. version of events, including whether explosives were present in the vehicle, whether the driver had a connection to ISIS, and whether there was a second explosion after the missile struck the car. But yeah, they found out that it was this Zamari Ahmadi, longtime worker for the U.S. aid group, and the evidence suggests that his travels that day actually involved transporting colleagues to and from work. And an analysis of video feeds showed that what the military may have seen was Mr. Ahmadi and a colleague loading canisters of water into his trunk to bring home to his family. And yeah, so they just murdered this person for absolutely no reason. And this lines up totally with what we learned from the whistleblower, Hale, Daniel Hale, that 90% of the victims of drone strikes are not the intended targets. And what we know from previous whistleblowers, that anybody who's over the age of 18 and male gets marked down as an enemy combatant no matter what in the numbers. So we called this, immediately when they first started pulling out of Afghanistan, that they're going to continue drone striking and murdering and doing software stuff and CIA interventionism and all that kind of stuff in Afghanistan.
I don't understand it. Like the USA commit genocide on other countries. It became just so a normal thing that I don't even think that we talk enough about it. And instead, it's so disgusting that instead they talk about, talk shit about other socialist countries, about the things that the very controversial that happened long time ago that they don't even have enough evidence for it, but it's.
The thing that blows my mind is that I think this should all be pretty obvious to the left, right? That this is also screwed up and that Daniel Hale should be released and that these drone strikes need to end immediately.
Yeah.
These drone strikes need to end completely. It's a terrorism program and they need to end immediately and not start again. And there's no justification for it, period, right? Full stop, end of story. That should be very obvious to leftists, but we have leftists defending it and it blows my mind.
We have leftists who are actually genocide defenders.
Yeah, well, this is
I don't
right.
want to name any names right here, right now, because I don't want drama. But they are a big influencers.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not just one person.
Leftists, not just
it's a
one.
movement. It's a movement
Yes.
within the left of people who call themselves socialists and say that they're anti-imperialism
Yes.
and stuff, and then they justify these bombings. That's what
They
blows my
say
mind.
that they're anti-imperialist, but it's fine
And
when
this-
the U.S. drone strike the shit out of Afghanistan.
Yeah. Yeah. And this will really heavily feature in our morality discussion when we get into that, which we need to get into pretty soon, I think, because that's going to probably take about an hour to go through. But we got a super chat from, this will probably lighten things up a little bit before we go into the real stuff. Per Mayusen said, please consider giving us a crash course in Marxist-Leninist terminology in Vietnamese.
What is
If
it?
you're going to introduce somebody to the very basics of, just do it in Vietnamese. The basics of dialectical materialism. They paid you $5.
I will speak the whole thing in Vietnamese.
Yeah, just a quick, 1 minute or less.
I will just copy my lecturer then. Xin chào tất cả các bạn đã chào mừng đến hôm nay đến với lớp học về chủ nghĩa duy vật biện chứng của chúng ta hôm nay. Đầu tiên thì chúng ta phải biết được chủ nghĩa duy vật biện chứng nghĩa là gì, chủ nghĩa duy vật là gì và biện chứng nghĩa là gì. Cái đầu tiên mà chúng ta cần hiểu đó là về chủ nghĩa duy vật biện chứng, đó là chúng ta phải hiểu được vật chất và ý thức nó quan hệ với nhau như thế nào, và cái vật chất là gì và ý thức là gì.
It's amazing. I actually understood way more of that than I thought I would, but I also understood none of it. Like, I understood a lot of individual words, but they came together with no meaning in my mind.
I just said hello everybody, welcome to our dialectical materialism class today. And in order to understand what is dialectical materialism, we must understand first what is matter and what is consciousness and the relationship between matter and consciousness. That's what I just said in Vietnamese.
I'm me. I just got your donation. I'm not reading it to the stream, and I noticed that too, and I've already done what you asked. Already. That's already been done. So I'm right with you and totally understand. And I will honor your request, which makes perfect sense not to read that out to the stream.
Anarcho-communism, arachno-communism, it should be mâu thuẫn. You misuse the tone. It's mâu thuẫn. The Greek tone should be on the second word. And it means contradiction.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, give me some basic words. So what's the word for dialectical?
Dialectical means biện chứng.
Biện chứng?
Biện chứng, biện means according to. And chứng means evidence. So like dialectics just means like you argue or you think according to evidence.
And materialism?
Materialism, chủ nghĩa duy vật. Chủ nghĩa duy vật.
Chủ nghĩa duy vật.
Duy vật. So it's very interesting. Duy vật is material or something like duy means vật means like material things, object, and duy means like you believe in it first.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, like only the object matters. That's what it literally means in Vietnamese.
Interesting.
So chủ nghĩa means like ism.
So altogether, what does it mean?
Together, it just means like the ism that believe in the object.
It's funny that you emphasize different things. So the word object, does that mean like material object specifically?
Material
Like,
object.
yeah. And dialectics, so it's funny because in English, dialectics really stresses the di means like two-part, so it's like the two, I guess, contradictions or whatever. But your version, it emphasizes the evidence. I think that tells you.
Yeah. Biện
something.
chứng, according to evidence. Means
Fascinating.
like, yeah, we emphasize on the material conditions, the objects, the real thing.
Is it possible for Vietnamese to speak slowly? It's difficult. I've had my entire life one Vietnamese
It is
person.
hard.
I've had one Vietnamese person carefully and slowly speak Vietnamese to me because I was having a hard time understanding.
It's hard. I will try to speak slowly in Vietnamese, okay?
Yeah.
Về chủ nghĩa duy vật biện chứng thì cái vật chất và cái ý thức nó có mối quan hệ biện chứng với nhau. Tức là vật chất quyết định ý thức, nhưng ngược lại ý thức cũng quay lại tác động lại vật chất thông
Still
qua
pretty
những
quick.
cái hành động của con
I had
người.
one guy,
It's just so hard
who
for me
was
to
like-
speak slowly.
I was trying to find a hotel or something, and he was like on the side of the road, and he was like, the tongue,
Oh, yeah.
they fight. Like he was like very slow, and I was like, wow,
Wow.
I actually understand everything you just said. Thank you. Never had somebody before.
But it's hard for Vietnamese to speak slow. I don't know why though. Why?
Why is it hard for Vietnamese to speak slowly?
Yeah.
I don't freaking know because of the rhythm. I think the rhythm's important. It's hard for me to speak slowly. Everyone's always telling me to slow down. I have a hard time, so I understand it.
Very interesting, the Vietnamese language. Oh, well, yeah.
Luna Slow is still so fast. Yeah. Okay. What do you want to do? You want to get into the meat?
Yeah, why not?
All right. It's a big one. So we're going to be talking now about morality on the left. And I think that this is a big thing. Okay, so this is all... Okay. I'm trying to... the hard part here is to find where do you jump into the water, right? Where do you start? Because it's a big, huge topic. And I think it's really, really important for us all to start thinking about this specific problem that we're having. But I guess what I'll start is with what got me and Luna talking about it. What prompted it. So we did a stream last week on The Dialectic, which is a fantastic stream if you haven't seen it, about Black nationalism and imperialism and colonialism and all these things. And it was a really fantastic panel. It was BP, Professor Flowers, Law Sue, Carr, and Eddie and Al from Leaf Left.
Al. Yeah, and Eddie.
Yeah. Great, wonderful panel. Was that everybody? Did I leave anybody out?
I think. And me.
And you. And Luna, of course. I always leave Luna out every single time. But okay, in the comments to that video, I got one question, which I feel was a fair question in a sense, because of the way that we are conditioned to think about things in the West, in the USA and presumably most of Europe specifically.
I just changed to my new earring.
Yes, it looks lovely. You've got one errant feather strand. But anyway, so what this person asked was, and again, not an unfair question or whatever, but they said, because in that stream, BP said, made the comment that if all the indigenous people in the USA asked all the white people to leave, or like all the non-indigenous people, whatever, to leave, BP said that we should just leave. Like that's the right thing to do. Oh, you got it! Look at that! You got a member, Spirit Mayo.
Yay!
That's awesome. Well, welcome aboard. Actually, I was your first one, Luna.
Oh.
I never get credit for being the original Luna Simp ever. I never get any credit for being the original Luna Simp. Welcome, Spirit Mayo. You are the second in the anarcho hierarchy of Luna Simping. All right.
Okay.
So BP said this. BP said, if every indigenous person wanted everyone else to leave, we should all just leave the USA. Okay. Now, this person said, in response to that, why should I join a movement where the ideology wants me out? Okay. This had problems in a few different ways, and I think it's important to address all of them. First of all, it conflated BP's personal opinion with like some movement. Like, what do you mean by movement? Like, let's define what we're talking about here. Are you defining like the people on that panel as a movement? Because they said that like one of the points of evidence was that nobody pushed back against that idea, right? Like BP said it and nobody argued. Now, first of all, I was there in a listening mode because I was there just to like listen to Black people, indigenous people, Luna, I mean, I shared some of my thoughts, but I didn't feel like I was there to debate anybody. Like, you don't always have to fucking argue with everybody about every single thing, whether you agree or not, or whatever. So I don't think the fact that nobody argued against it, first of all, meant anything. We were all just there to listen to each other and share our thoughts, and it wasn't like a debate stream, right? Second of all, BP was speaking for BP and nobody else, right?
Yeah.
And third of all, who cares? And this is where we're really getting into the idea of morality.
Exactly.
Who cares? Because what that question is it's essentially boils down to a moral question, right? It's a hypothetical question. And it's like the answer, and the reason that you ask it is to find something out about the person you're asking its morality, their ethics, right? I mean, I guess I should distinguish. Morality is like a social, the way that I'm going to define the terms. I guess people use these terms differently. I'll use morality to refer to social values of what's good and what's bad, and then ethics to refer to like personal ethics of what's good and what's bad, right?
Yeah.
There's so much overlap, but anyway, but it's a moral question like is that a good thing or a bad thing? But it's a totally hypothetical moral question. It's like the trolley problem question. It's like interesting in a philosophical, hypothetical way to think about the mechanics of morality and blah, 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 but it actually has no basis in reality because from my knowledge, there's never been a situation in history, and there probably will never be a situation which is specifically that there's, like, first of all, we don't even really have trolleys anymore in most places.
Yeah.
It's a hypothetical question, but it's, like, supposed to tell you something about the morality of the person you're talking to. But the first thing I want to say is, do we all have to agree with each other about every single moral question?
Yeah.
Because if so, I find that absurd and unworkable.
Yeah.
And it means that, like, whenever you meet somebody, before you can do any work with them, you have to go through and think of every possible imaginary scenario that might occur and ask what they would do in that scenario.
That is, to me, idealist. Very idealist.
It's absolutely idealist. Are you kidding? It's like the definition of idealism. Now, I've seen some people, since Luna and I started talking about materialism versus idealism a lot, some people have criticized us by saying that we just mean materialist to mean things that we agree with, and we mean idealism to mean things that we disagree with. I think that we've defined pretty clearly in our work what we mean when we say materialism and what we mean when we say idealism. Mm-hmm. Idealism is it's the idea that human thought is the first basis for seeking out truth. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's no material world outside.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that they believe or not there's a material world, because like we move to a different stage of understanding now. Yeah. Now idealism means that like you approach, like, you know, like you put your own thought higher than the actual material conditions, and you want to seek the truth from your own thoughts.
So the point is that the first basis for a materialist is what's happening in the real world. And I'm going to go through and I've read this great book. Let me find the name of this book. It's like such a good book, and that's what I'm following with a lot of this.
In the meantime, I will talk a little bit about, like, I see this is a big difference between the Vietnamese communists and the Western leftists, because like Vietnamese communists, they are like 97 million of us. So of course, not every single one of us will agree with every single one. A lot of people like 100% like perfectly. No. But we tend to focus on what we agree with each other. And in each situation, we will seek for the common ground between us, and then we focus on that and we work together to get it done. And then like once things done, maybe when we move to a different situation, a different problem, we find different people with like the same background and we work together.
You're skipping way ahead to the end.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's a good like preview, I guess, of what we're talking about. The name of the book is Ethics in Progress by Howard Sullivan. I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with this it's going to go over their head what you just said, honestly.
Yeah.
Because you're doing what Marx does a lot in Capital at the end. Okay, this is funny and it's just an aside, but it tells you kind of what's going on.
Wait a minute, I want to read this to see what first. I can imagine Luna in an ASMR video titled Relaxing Lesson in Revolutionary Communism for Beginners.
That was one of our first ideas for your channel,
right.
Was for you to do like communist ASMR.
Yeah. I
don't know why you never did that. At this point, I think you'd have to start a second channel though for it.
I try it. You
got to get closer to the mic for ASMR. In Vietnamese.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người, mình là Luna. Mình đến từ Việt Nam mà hôm nay mình rất vui được sẽ nói chuyện với các bạn về chủ nghĩa cộng sản và nói về Hồ Chí Minh
somebody's
và
just tuning in for the very
Marx.
first time ever right now.
Hay đầu tiên mình sẽ giải thích với bạn thế nào là chủ nghĩa cộng sản và ý nghĩa của tương lai chủ nghĩa cộng sản là gì.
What do you think about that?
I got some tingles. Okay, so all right, I just shared the archive.org link to the book. You can read it for free on archive.org. It's called Ethics and Progress, New Values in a Revolutionary World. It's interesting because it was written in like 1965 or so. And it's just kind of ahead of its time in terms of like a lot of the stuff that this author's writing, Howard Selsom, feels like it's written for us today. You know, it's just kind of interesting. But so I read this book, and there's a lot of really good information in it, and it's really helped me to wrap my head around what's happening today with the left. And I was going to talk about Marx. So what Luna just did was explain kind of like a lot of the conclusions we're going to come to. And this is something, so when Marx writes Capital, right? If you try to read Capital for the first time, Marx starts with all these conclusions. And then like the rest of the book is showing the work for the conclusions, right? So when you first read it, it sounds like you're just making all this shit up. Where do you come up with this? Blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people, especially like bourgeois anti-communists, they like give up reading it because they're like, this is just a bunch of bullshit. That's why they say like Marx is an idealist.
Jordan
and blah, blah, blah.
Peterson.
Right. Well, Peterson just read the manifesto and probably just didn't even read that. But anyway, what Luna just did was tell you all these conclusions, but we have to scaffold to get there. So my questions are, when should differences in opinion about moral hypothetical questions matter, right? And like, should we stop working with somebody or refuse to work with them if they have a difference of morality with you? And this ties in a lot, I think, with a lot of the problems that we ascribe to quote unquote cancel culture. This is complicated because like when we talk about cancel culture is actually a lot of different things, and it means different things to different people. And a lot of times cancel culture is like whatever I don't like. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think a lot of the problems people have with cancel culture, legitimately, a lot of the legitimate problems people have with cancel culture comes down to hypotheticals and morality and idealism. Okay. So, so let's talk about, hopefully, you know a little bit about the difference between materialism and idealism. Very, very simply, idealism is when you think that human reasoning and human thought is the best path forward to find truth. And then materialism is the idea that you have to use what we can sense with our senses from the material world as the first basis. But dialectical materialism kind of synthesizes those and says the first basis is the material world, but human thought through human labor can impact the material world. So there's a dialectical relationship where the material is like the strongest thrust forward, but idealism can go back and impact reality. Okay?
Yeah.
Hope everybody kind of follows along. We have lots of videos between both of our channels if you would like links to wrap your head around that more, but that's the basic idea. June is a member! Welcome aboard to Luna's channel! I'm kind of jealous.
Yay!
This is already making me want to compete with you for... But I have to remember, I'm a non-competitor. Look at that. Yoon has a green name now. That's pretty cool. I didn't know it did that. So StreamYard does know that about members. That's cool.
Yes.
La Su. EJ, it also leads towards keeping a circle of abuse going and should be moving past that and more focused on healing. Yes.
Yeah.
That's something we'll be we'll be covering that. See, La Su knows where we're going with this. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the questions we have are like okay, so morality. Okay, I think the first place to begin when we talk about morality is one more thing about the basic questions is why do we have to have I don't want to have to answer a lot of these hypotheticals myself because they're so out there in like the stratosphere. Like I want to come down to earth, you know? So like, that's why if you ask me the question, if all the indigenous people in America ask us to leave, should we leave? Like, I don't even want to answer that question. I don't feel like I should be compelled to answer that question because it's such a hypothetical and it's so decoupled from where we are right now in reality. Like, why do we have to get in the situation where we have to talk about stuff?
I'm a materialist. I don't even understand why people can come up with this ding-dong question. Like, that's
Well, I can tell you why. I can tell you why.
No evidence in real life.
It's because there's this long Western tradition that comes from like European philosophy where we put our heads in the clouds and we try to think of like the most ideal, perfect, whatever. Like going back to literally the book Utopia, which was like this Christian idea of like, how do we build the perfect society, right? It's all about, okay. So listen, Luna, I'm going to walk you through this. As far as like trying to understand this mindset. It's like it's a very basic. It's like what we're taught in school. You know, like this is what philosophy is to a lot of people. It's coming up with the perfect ideal solution. Now, wow, thank you, Audrey. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the cool kids table. Yeah, like thought experiments. Thank you, non-standard proletarians. This is a big part of philosophy, like the way that we're taught it. Like when I was in college, it was all about thought experiments. And by the way, what I am going to be talking about here will sound to some people like moral relativism at first. Moral relativism is this idea that there is no such thing as morality, and it's all subjective from individual to individual, and nobody can say what nobody can like prescribe morality to anybody else, blah, 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 blah. We're not talking about that, but at first it might sound like that because these ideas might be so unfamiliar to you, because it sounded like that to me at first. But there is a basis for morality, and we will get to that. But it's not sitting around and thinking about hypotheticals, right? And coming up with like idealist solutions to problems that don't even exist, right? And it takes a lot of privilege. And actually, who was it? Wait a minute. Philosophy Tube did a video about, I can't remember, but there was a black author or a black author that she was quoting, and it was like, it was such a long time ago, but it was about like, But basically, the black person was saying, the black person was saying that, you know, white people sitting around and thinking about all these hypotheticals, like, because it was about Hegel. I'm starting to remember now. It was about like Hegel and like all these hypotheticals that Hegel was presenting, and then like black people are like so in an actual moral and physical like struggle, right, that they don't have to think of any hypotheticals because they're surrounded by it all the time. Anyway, I hopefully somebody in the audience knows what I'm talking about, but it's like people who are actually oppressed are not sitting around all the time thinking about hypotheticals like this, and it seems bizarre when they do, and I think that has a lot to do with, not trying to cause drama here, but the debate between Vosh and Professor Flowers. Professor Flowers was like so frustrated because Lua was trying to talk about things that actually happen in the real world, and Vosh was trying to talk about these hypotheticals, and there was like this huge disconnect. The other thing I want to say about the debate format right off the bat in the beginning is that it's really fucked up, I think, for one person to be the debate opponent and the moderator and the host that the entire audience is already predisposed to love, right? So like, that's like such a loaded situation. I don't see how you could even call that debate by any standard. Like when I was doing debate in high school, there was like a person who was the moderator and their job was to be neutral. And then there was like your opponent. And then it was supposed to be this neutral thing. And usually they would choose a venue where there's like, because like they even thought about the audience when we did debate. Like they would actually make sure that if there was an audience, it was like equally one school and the other school. And if they couldn't do that, because like if we were visiting a school that was really far away, then they would have no audience because they didn't want the audience to like influence the debate too much. That was something they actually did in forensics when I was in high school, right? That was like 20 years ago. But like, because that stuff doesn't influence the situation too. So like, I think it's fucked up that we had a situation where one, especially when you talk about the social power dynamics and hierarchies, you have one white person who has an audience that is predisposed already to like a poisoned well scenario.
And I will say it's very kind of toxic and racist fandom.
Luna has experienced, a lot of toxicity and racism from those people, which is not necessarily a criticism of Vosh, but you know, it is true. I've seen it as well. I mean, you just go back and look at the chat whenever Vosh watches Luna's videos, and you'll see a lot of racist comments about Luna. So anyway, I just find that really fucked up, and that doesn't have much to do with what we're talking about, I guess, but it's just something I wanted to point out. Like, how can you be the moderator and the opponent on your own show? Like, that seems... The only debates I've done on streaming have been with moderators, or at least there were supposed to be moderators. So, okay. Let's talk about morality now. I'm gonna start trying to get more focused here, folks. I apologize if we've been kind of buzzing around all over the place.
Talking about moral.
So let's start with existentialism, okay? Because that's where the book that I read starts. Ethics in Progress. So, and I actually have always, one of the first philosophies that I ever started studying was existentialism. And this was like back in college.
Interesting. The very first ideology that I studied was dialectical materialism.
I mean, the first was like United States of America ideology from like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and all that. But like French existentialism specifically, I do still find a lot of value in it, even though I will say... Car's on! Hello! Morality. Focus, EJ.
Focus, EJ!
Well, you just distracted me to tell me to focus, Luna. I was focused, and then you just distracted me to tell me to focus. How ironic is that? Existentialism is, I think, ultimately idealist, but I also still find it valuable, and there's a lot we can get from it. And the author of the book apparently agrees with me, because the book author is a dialectical materialist.
First, can you explain what the hell is
existentialism? So existentialism, it's a very complex philosophy, and not everybody agrees with it, but I'm going to tell you what I find valuable in it, and what the book also finds valuable in it. It comes from like around the end of World War II, after the Holocaust, after this massive war in which millions of people died and the entire world's devastated. And a lot of these philosophers were sitting around thinking, wow, everything we thought we knew is fucking wrong. Wow, things suck. Wow, how are we going to deal with this? Like psychically, emotionally, existentially, like, and there was a lot of kind of like disbelief in things that were held valuable before, right? So before World War II and before like World War I even, and all of these horrible things that happened in the early 20th century, there were these like ideals that people had, these convictions, whether they were religious or whether they were like secular, regarding the future of humanity, that we were like moving forward towards this bright future and everything like that. And we have this destiny, right? This idea that we have this destiny. Either God gave us a destiny, or we have a destiny just by like natural law or whatever to move forward or whatever. And the existentialists were like, obviously there's no externality that's guiding us. Like, we are absolutely alone in the universe. Nobody cares what happens to us. World War II is like proof of that, because how could the Holocaust have happened? Kind of, I'm glossing over a lot of the thought, but the basic idea is that we don't have a ordained destiny. So we have this actually kind of terrible responsibility that we have to come up with our own destiny, right? Now, when it comes to morality, one of the points that the existentialists made was that human beings are very, very unique from what we know about the universe. There might be other species out there, but from what we know, humans are the only species that have the capability to have morality. The reason is because we have the ability to imagine a different world and then compare the reality we have right now to this hypothetical world. And that's where morality comes from.
Yes.
It's comparing
Why,
what's
like,
happening
we
now.
We sympathize.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like we put our like feet on other people's shoes.
Right. Strike that, reverse it. But yeah, shoes on the feet.
Shoes on the feet.
Yeah. But like, the book gives the example of this apocryphal, not true story. But there's this story that was like going around at the time that in California, they had these fruit pickers, like migrant workers, and they were like striking again and again. Like they kept unionizing and striking. And the farmers got sick of it. So they imported some monkeys to pick the fruit. Because it was way cheaper, and then the monkeys wouldn't organize. But then the monkeys started to organize. All right, now that's a funny story, but it's not true. And as the book points out, it could never be true, because monkeys cannot imagine like a better situation for themselves.
What if
What if the monkeys start to organize and start a union, right? But so like so the existentialists pointed out that that's what makes humans unique, and that's why we have morality. So you have to be able to imagine a better world than the one you have right now to have morality. And then the book also talks about how like you can't have good without evil, and you can't have evil without good. Like you have to have some point of comparison. So there's kind of like this interesting relationship between good and evil, and there's an interesting relationship between the human imagination and morality. Like they go hand in hand. Thank you, Spirit Mayo. You're glad to be a member. Keep up the great work, Luna and EJ. Wow. Welcome aboard, my fellow. Oh yeah, we have to do a cohort.
Yeah, cohort.
We've co-signed a cohort for you, Spirit Mayo. Thank you so much, okay, so I'm going through. I have an outline I'm following, so I will be focused hopefully from here on. Okay. Now the other points we got to point out, some other features of ethics. ethics can be like wide, and there could be like a wide tolerance for different kinds of ethics in a society, or they can be very narrow. So a narrow society would be like Puritan New England, where they were like all super religious and they got their morality. It was like received from the Bible, and you had to follow that morality, and there was like no tolerance for other ethics.
200 years ago.
Or you could have a wider like ethical platform where people have all kinds of different ways that are rising at their ethics, and they're like, and it's more like metropolitan, I guess. So ethics also develop not only with like human imagination, but also with technology.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really compelling argument. So for one thing,
And also, like, if you think about that in dialectical materialism thought, you know, even like ethics and morals, they are both like, you know, a phenomenon, things an idea in the material world, means that it has its own like development, and it will change over time according to the material conditions. That is why morals and ethics now like change into the point that like with the technology.
yes.
The new technology all the time. The morals and ethics, they don't stay the same.
Yeah. The overarching point of all of this section that we're talking about right now is that ethics develop over time in the dialectical materialist sense. Now, this is the part where when you're first stepping into it, and if you don't have familiarity with dialectical materialism, it can feel like nihilism, or it could feel like moral relativism.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you're saying, oh, there's no basis for morality. If morals can just change all the time, then that means that there's no such thing as morals, and it's like cats and dogs sleeping together. Like anything can happen. There's no morals, right? But that's not the point. The point is that there are absolutely, definitely bases for morality, but they develop over time. So one example that, as far as the technology relationship, one example was that feudal morality, a lot of it had to do with like farmland and the technology of the time for farming. And like, there was the morality of like some of the ethics they had were like in like feudal Europe was like the idea of the common lands. And they had all this stuff, all these like social rules and mores and everything related to farmland. Those rules are all very irrelevant now to most people living in like modern cities in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Right. So like our morality has like changed so much that I never in my entire life growing up ever had to ponder about like the ethics of collective farming, right? Because it was just like so not relevant to my life. That's not to say that, of course, there are still ethics related to farming in the modern world, but it's not on most people's minds, right? So, but better, other examples would be like the fact that if the fact is that the average person in like a poor country has a 65-year lifespan, today that would be, I would consider that very ethically shocking. Like it's horrible that that's true. But 200 years ago, that would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
So obviously our ethical standards change over time with technology. Another example is the fact that we are now having to talk about things like biotechnology and artificial intelligence, automation, things like that, in terms of the ethics of them, when they wouldn't even been conceivable to somebody like 1,000 years ago, right? So like, again, ethics evolve and develop over time, okay? The other thing is that ethics have a class character.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a great, this is a fiction example, but I think it's a really good, it kind of tells you a little bit what you're talking about. So what the book talked about was the fact that, first of all, capitalists have this ethical stance that like business is business. It's just business. Everything is justified because I'm just doing it for my work. It's not personal. It's just business, right? That's a ethical stance that the capitalists have. And the book talks about how like a Christian capitalist would go to church on Sunday and in their heart believe with all their soul the things that Jesus says in the Bible that we should share with everybody and we should like give up all of our possessions.
Make sure we'll never go to heaven.
Yeah, but then the rest of the week they spend trying to be as profitable as possible and take as much as possible, right?
Yes.
It's like this, and it's acceptable because the profit-seeking stuff, it's just business. It has nothing to do with my personal ethics or anything like that. There's a separation. So there's a class character to ethics. And so a good example of that is, I was just watching this show last night, and I know this is like a boomer reference, but I don't care. It's a good example. There's a show called Maude by Norman Lear.
Wait a minute.
Huh?
Alan Kennedy asked, how does one become a YouTube member?
That's
There's
on,
no
okay,
button.
well, Alien Kennedy, it's on Luna's channel only right now. I know this is freaking confusing, but you have to go to Luna's channel and then you'll see the join button on the channel and every video will have the join button. We don't have it on non-compete yet because we're just testing it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it for like a few months and see if it's something people are into or not. But anyway,
Còn cho mấy
that's
lúc
how.
là ơi channel and
Yeah, there should be a join button
remember.
next to the subscribe button. Okay, so there's this show called Maude that Norman Lear produced back in the 70s, and it's a spin-off of All in the Family, which was one of my favorite shows of all time. But Maude is like this rich liberal, and her husband's a capitalist. So in the episode that I watched last night, Maude's husband, the owner of a big company, capitalist, they have a Christmas party.
Yeah.
And they invite all the employees over to their house, to their big mansion for Christmas. And at this Christmas party, first, they're all like, they sing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow for the boss, for the owner. And then they come out, a few minutes later, and they say, boss, there's something we got to tell you. We're forming a union. And the boss is pissed, and he feels betrayed. And he's like, I can't believe that you came here to my house on Christmas Eve, or at our Christmas party, and you said, you sang for He's a Jolly Good Fellow, but now you kind of turn around and you tell me that you want to start a union? You know, like we all know each other on a first name basis. We've known each other for years. How can you do this to me? This is such a betrayal. And the union members are like, look, we still think you're a jolly good fellow, but now we have the right to vote on it. It's a great line. So this tells you about the class character of ethics, because I can actually see from the position of the boss how he would see that as betrayal.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, he's creating jobs.
Yes.
Now, from the working class perspective, if you really look at it, the reason he creates jobs is to make more profits.
Yes.
Just like...
So he can like accumulate all the like profit.
Right. Landlords, from their perspective, they're providing people with homes. Like Destiny said, where would people get houses if we didn't have landlords?
Yeah, right.
That's a true Destiny quote. Apparently Destiny thinks that landlords like build houses.
Welcome
Like with their bare
Andrew.
hands.
Welcome to the gang.
Welcome to the Luna Gang. So there's this class character. Now, so in this situation with the Christmas party, from the capitalist ethical position, it is a betrayal, right?
Yeah.
They're being betrayed by these workers who they thought were
Exactly.
family. From the working class perspective, though, the most ethical thing you can do just about is form a union with your fellow workers so that
Exactly.
you could have more power and control over your own life.
I want to plug in. Remember when we translate the book? Just saying like, when we learn about Marxism, Leninism, when we learn the first thing about dialectical materialism in Vietnam, the very first thing that we study even before dialectical materialism is that we learn about the worldview, the viewpoint. So it is very important for the left, us, to have the right point of view.
Right.
So like having a bourgeois point of view is absolutely reactionary.
But
That is
it's the
very,
point
very
of view,
important.
and the book talks about this. It is the point of view that the bourgeoisie are going to take.
Yes.
Like that is the point they're going to take. It is very, very rare for people to take stances against their own material interests. And the book goes into that. So we'll talk about that. So there's a material kind of component to this as well, right? Like you're going to have ethics that are based on your interaction with the material world, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So,
Yes. There's a greetings from Baltimore.
oh,
Hi.
Baltimore. I don't know. I learned from The Wire that you're supposed to say Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Nobody in The Wire said Baltimore. They all said Baltimore.
I'm sorry, in Vietnamese for decades we call you Baltimore.
Okay, I'm literally quoting a 15-year-old TV show. So who knows if that's actually true or not.
In,
I was making a joke.
in Vietnamese we call you Baltimore. That is how we pronounce your name. Hmm?
It's probably, I don't know. I would sincerely say Baltimore. I was just making kind
Yes,
of a joke.
yeah.
Okay.
Ronnie, welcome to the game.
Without landlords, there are no houses. Entire human history destroyed and owned epic style
Exactly.
with facts and logic, I might add.
Without capitalists, none of us will have any job.
We need to watch The Wire very soon. That's got. I want to watch it as a communist because I've never seen it before. Last time I watched it, I was like a liberal. Okay, now, so ethics have class character. Okay, now Engels pointed out that there has been ethical progress even in class society. So ethics can advance and develop even within class society, right? So for instance, there's much, I won't say there's no child labor in the USA anymore, but there's a lot less, and it's like, it used to be a lot worse. So we've had development. Also, like chattel slavery was abolished. There's still slavery in prisons and all other kinds of slavery, but there has been like development, right?
Yeah.
So Engels recognized that ethics can develop under class society, but what class society will not allow, or what it really resists, is ethics that would challenge the very structure of the class dynamics, right? So like, if you try to put forward ethics such as the worker should own the means of production, if you take that moral position, capitalist society is going to heavily suppress that, attack it, and fight tooth and nail to prevent it from taking root, because that challenges the fabric of class structure.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
So like everybody, it is a fact that everybody with their own perspective, they have their own morality. And to them, like to reactionaries, we are the rebel. We are the bad guys. So like according to their own perspective, we are bad.
Now, every person you ever asked that's not just like fucking horrible. I mean, I guess there are probably some fascists that wouldn't agree with this, but everyone would agree. Nobody likes violence, right? I don't like violence. But sometimes it's necessary, right? That's what most people would agree with that. Some people might say there's never, ever, ever a justification for violence, even in self-defense. That's a very, very fringe. And then some people might say, no, violence is awesome. We love it, but that's very fringe. Like the vast majority of people would say violence is only, we can only use violence when it's absolutely necessary, right? But, and like most people in capitalist society, working class and capitalist class would say, violent terrorism is horrible. Nobody should be a violent terrorist. Except for some very specific situations, like under the Nazis with the resistance in like the French resistance,
Again, according to those people, quote unquote, Western leftists right now, you're like, the World War I and World War II should not happen because the Alliance should just debate the Nazis and just persuade them to
that's the thing.
Stop murdering Jews.
It's justifiable to use violence when you're in the French resistance. You can bomb and by the way, the French resistance were terrorists. There's most of the resistance movements in Europe. There's no bones about it. They blew up, Nazi infrastructure. They definitely killed innocent people. It was part of the warfare.
Yeah.
Because if they wanted to blow up a munitions factory from the Germans, people would die, right? Now, most people would say that's justified because the Nazis were so horrible and brutally oppressive that it was a necessary evil, right? But so most capitalists would say it's okay to use that kind of resistance violence sometimes in very, very extreme conditions.
And they would decide when.
Well, that's the thing, because in the Vietnam War, they used chemical warfare, napalm, bombing civilians, killing millions of civilians, 2 million civilians killed in that war alone. And it was all just to protect the class interests of the capitalists, right? Vietnam
should just debate the USA. Ho Chi Minh should just debate who? Nixon?
Yeah, all of them, all the jerks, Johnson. But the point is that they're definitely willing to use violence in that situation.
Yeah.
Then that doesn't. Also, there's the violence of poverty.
Yeah, exactly.
When we have
poverty is also a violence, and lack of universal health care also a violence.
Poverty,
lack of clean water also violence.
Because it's avoidable. Poverty is killing 25,000 people per day, I believe. It's killing a lot of people every day. Much more people than COVID, right? Even at the worst, poverty was killing more than COVID. So there's this class character to that kind of morality as well, right? Violence is only usable in very, very extreme situations when the capitalist class uses it all the time. Now, the goal, I think most of us would agree. I think it's kind of I think that a goal for humanity that we could all kind of agree on, maybe, let's float this out there, would be universal ethics that we can all follow. All humans can follow universal ethics, right? That's what we want. We want to have the perfect set of ethics and moral stances that we can take that apply to everyone equally, and everyone is equally treated by morals and ethics,
Such
right?
as and all the basic needs will be secure.
Well, hold on. You're getting ahead of yourself, because you cannot have such universal ethical stances in a class society.
For sure.
Because there's going to be different material needs for different people. And when I say classes in the modern world, we also have to include not just like economic class, but also like components of like nationality, because some people in some nations have much different material conditions than in others. Black people in the USA have much different material conditions than white people. We cannot possibly, it's like absurd to think that we could apply the exact same ethics in every single situation to every single person, right? Like there's no way you can make a code of conduct that every single person on earth would have to follow that makes any kind of sense. Like just look at prison, the kind of things that you have to do in prison to survive, right? There are things that people have to do in prison, and BP talks about this a lot, that we don't do on the outside and we don't have to do to survive on the outside, right? So people have like very drastically different material conditions, right? Another good example. So I listened to a podcast one time with this black psychologist who was talking about IQ tests and how they're racist. And there was a question on the old IQ test, like the first, I think it was an IQ test, yeah. And the question was like, because they used to have morality questions on the IQ tests. And the question was, if you go into a department store and you find a wallet, what do? And you have to write in your answer. And the answer they wanted you to write in is, I'll take the wallet, I'll pick it up, and I'll take it to the clerk at the front desk, the checkout counter, and I'll say, I found this wallet, please return it to whoever if they come. And the black guy was like, in the 60s, no black kid is going to think that that's the right thing to do. Yeah. Because if they do that, especially if it's a store with white people in it, they're going to think you stole the wallet and they're going to call the police and you might go to jail. So like, absolutely, you cannot have the same ethical positions for every single person in society where we all have to do the exact same thing in a class society, right? In order to do that, you have to negate all the classes so that we don't have those kinds of divisions, and then we can all have like a universal ethical stance, right? So we should be working towards that, and the only way to work towards that is to dissolve class division, right? So
in order to erase the class division, what do?
We have to. Well, that's the big question of the left, right? So we're getting to the actual where the rubber hits the road here. Is everybody with me? Is everybody following along so far?
You better say it short and quick.
Say what?
So people can follow you.
No, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
You ask.
I'm asking if people are following along.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, okay. I'm going to read now. Okay. This is really important before I read this. Because we live in a class society now, we can only imagine what a classless society would look like, which means that we can only speculate on what some kind of universal ethics or morality might look like, right? We can only speculate. We really can't know for sure. And it would be an idealist position to claim that you know what the universal ethics would look like, because we don't know exactly what that material conditions are going to look like. Thank you for the feedback. I'm glad you're following along. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to read now. Future progress cannot be proven, very important, even though we might have a good idea of what things might be like if we overthrow capitalism. I can. The font is very small. Yeah. Maybe I can just make it bigger.
A little bit easier for.
Oh, I can fit. Okay, it's going to be very grainy, but just bear with me, folks. I'll share the screen.
Easier for people to follow.
Okay. So this is from the book Ethics in Progress by Howard Selsom, which is, I'll share that link one more time for folks who might have just joined us. Okay. So, future progress cannot be proven and can scarcely be called inevitable, but the world has produced and is producing values. And as Waldo Frank once said, a world dies when it has begun to live on values it has produced, but which demand a much different structure. One certain way not to achieve progress is to think and speak of such ethical values as right, freedom, equality, or justice as conditions that exist now, rather than as demands to be struggled for. Such an approach is bound to end in social stagnation and moral hypocrisy. That is why the present or any other free world is a misnomer and a contradiction in terms. Such ethical terms have meaning only as demands, aims, or goals, not as descriptions of an existing state of things. Okay? So what they're saying is, we cannot pretend that we know the future. We cannot pretend that we know what material conditions will be like once we resolve the contradictions we're seeking to resolve. So we can't know for sure what ethical positions we're going to have to take at any point in the future.
Mm.
Okay? But we also have to not pretend that right now conditions exist that do not exist. That's very important. We cannot pretend that right, freedom of equality, or justice exist right now, because they do not in the society that we live in right now. So we have to take that into consideration in our analysis and in our morality and our ethics.
We got raided.
We got a raid. Holy
Yay.
smokes. Welcome, raiders.
Welcome.
Let us know who raided. Class time.
Spirit Mail said, ask you about the picture of your account. You with the hat.
Oh, that's
Very funny.
That's an old photo from like 2010, I think. It's like me with a pipe. I don't even know. My Grant took that photo of me. There were it was like one of those photo booths where they have a bunch of props. It's just one of those. I don't know. I haven't updated it in forever.
I really love the photo.
It's very. I should probably update it, but nobody ever sees my photo except for, I guess, in the stream. Okay, so the question now is, we've established that there's not like a universal morality now because we don't have a universal humanity, right? And maybe we never will. But we have to work with what we have right now. So I'm going to read another passage. In our time, we have seen the rise of all the possibilities of one world, economically integrated and interdependent, divided only by conflicting economic systems, those of capitalism and socialism. Now remember, this is written in 1965. So what this person's saying is we have a global market. We have a global civilization. It was developed through very violent means, through literal empire building and through, all these different, it was really before neoliberalism came into its primacy when this was being written. But we still have these like colonial forms that still exist today, but we have this global world. We know that can exist, and it does exist, but it's still divided in many ways. One of the ways is like capitalism versus socialism at the time, because they still had the Soviet Union and all that, right? Conferences of the Asian African nations have dramatized the beginning of the end of capitalist colonialism in much of the earth and its inevitable downfall as a system. Wasn't quite as inevitable as we had hoped, it seems. In such a world as this, it has at last become possible to formulate certain general principles of ethics for all men everywhere. Very gendered language. It is 1965. Sorry, folks. Details over different areas of the world and for different segments of its peoples will vary immensely. Very important. This is like when Marx said in the Communist Manifesto preface in 1871 or 2 that we can't prescribe exactly this is what Marx said in the manifesto's preface. We can't tell people exactly what to do. It's going to depend on the material conditions and the times in which the revolution occurs. That's kind of basically what this person's saying. Nevertheless, there is evolving a least common denominator as a measure or criterion of individual and collective worth. Adherence to this can be said to be to constitute moral integrity, and violation of it can be termed immoral. But what of those, and they are many in all cultures, who decline the honor of moral probity? Basically, what about people who don't care? They may range from the worst scoundrels to the nicest people. They may be vulgar or just plain know-nothings or highly cultured people, but the externals of culture bear little relation to the problems of ethics. The most cultured people can simply say, I'm having a good time. I love my power, fortune, ease, or security. My art or scientific pursuits, my scholarship, or just my wife and children, or husband and children, and don't care a hang about anything or anyone else. Like, I'm doing great. Fuck all y'all. Got mine, fuck you.
Exactly.
How many times do we encounter got mine, fuck you in the Western left?
I'm so tired of
How many times do we have people who say, I just want universal health care, and then fuck everybody else?
Yeah.
Right? That's a big...
I remember like somebody like when I asked like, what do leftism mean in the USA? And so many people say like leftism just mean like liberals that want health care or something like that.
Right. We got a super chat from Permason. How do you say death to imperialism in Vietnamese?
Death to imperialism. Diệt chủ nghĩa đế quốc.
Say it one more time.
Or giết chết chủ nghĩa đế quốc.
How do they say death to fascists in that one song?
Diệt phát xít.
I like the Ziet Fascist. I like that one too. Good. Check out Death to Fascists if you like. We're going to do a cover of that one day. I've already got it like halfway composed.
Yeah, right?
Okay. So yeah, this last paragraph, I like this comment. Somebody's reading ahead. Andrew, you're reading ahead. That last paragraph is social democracy in a nutshell. There are those who think they can reason such people into morality, into some kind of social consciousness, which is moral consciousness. Such an approach is generally useless in practice and wrong in theory. Actually, I think this continues here.
No.
Oh, I thought it was going to act like Photoshop, and it did not.
No.
All right. In practice, this is so important, folks, because this is where like debate bro culture comes from, and this is where sock dem culture comes from, and this is where liberal morality comes from, and this is where let's just convince the fascists that they're wrong with facts and logic comes from. This is the crux of so many problems. This is where we really start to see why this kind of idealist morality has no place on the left. Okay?
Wait a minute, I have a question. Is America and imperialism the same word in Vietnamese? We do call đế quốc Mỹ, you know?
What does Daekook mean? Me means America. What does Daekook mean?
Đế quốc means imperial.
So you say imperialist America?
Imperialist America. Like the whole Vietnam War, we call you in the đế quốc Mỹ, the imperialist America.
Fair.
Or we call the Vietnam War kháng chiến chống Mỹ hoặc là kháng chiến chống đế quốc Mỹ, the resistance against imperialist America.
Gotcha. Good. That's a good name for that war, actually. All right. So in practice, so remember, we're talking about people who think you can just debate people into following your morality.
Yeah. You have to debate the shit out of Nazis so they can know that they are so wrong, and they would just like, happily like surrender and say that they're wrong. So
in practice, it works rarely, if ever. There are no arguments that work effectively against the denial of moral obligation. They all begin and end with the simple statement, if you are not interested in other people and human good in general and the future of mankind, you ought to be, you should be, but such an ought, such a should, is inoperative. Even though it is the essence of nearly all classic moralizing, it has no compelling power for one who is perfectly content to be what he is, to do what he's doing, gendered language, sorry. Someone else may see a contradiction between this mode of life, between their mode of life and what the time or situation calls for, but if they don't see it, all reasoning is at an end. This position might be called moral solipsism, the twin brother of epistemological solipsism. If I believe that I alone exist, and that you and all your arguments exist only in my mind and are my own creations, then all possible arguments will not shake me one iota. No logic can possibly convince either kind of solipsist. So solipsism is like basically like you can only know yourself.
yeah.
It's like this idea that like the self is the only truth you could possibly have. And you could kind of see where that comes from because like we are stuck in our own minds.
Exactly.
Like as close as Luna and I might ever become with one another.
I'm Vietnamese.
You know that? Familiar with that? Okay. Yeah, as close as Luna and I might ever become, like we'll never be able to share a mind. I'll never really know what you're thinking.
Share the mind.
No idea. Doesn't work.
No clue. Yeah.
So
we just proved that doesn't work. So yeah.
and this is kind of a solipsist position is where you just say like I know best and I can make all it's actually a very, very American idea. And actually it's very solipsist because you know something that US Americans, I'm talking about mostly white Americans, obviously, white US Americans, they say like, I like to think for myself. I'm an independent thinker. I like to think for myself. I don't like to be told what to think or whatever. You know, that's solipsism. Like I will just arrive at all of my own conclusions through my own reasoning. I'm going to sit down and think about something for a little while, come up with a answer that I think is best. And then God damn it, if that ain't going to be my basis for my morality for the rest of my life. And yeah, we have the America gun now. I like to think for myself. Dad, burn
Nobody
it.
can change my mind.
America. Okay, so I hope I've kind of illustrated the kind of people I'm talking about. Why did you delete my screen, Luna?
I did not. You did it yourself and you blame me. That's your American mindset.
Yeah.
I didn't even touch
I was doing an
anything.
example. I was showing you an example. All right. No logic can possibly convince either kind of solipsist. Often the question is argued on a realistic basis. Now this is again, and even I've used this before. Okay? And the debate bros do this all the time. If you don't do something about such and such conditions, poverty, racial discrimination, and the like, you will not long be able to continue living as you do. Your system of life will fail. You will lose your lucrative job or your income. Things cannot stay as they are. Fascism will come upon you. War will destroy you, or those you oppress will rise up against you and deprive you of your easy mode of life. The first they came for the Marxists, and I didn't care because I wasn't a Marxist. Then they came for the blah, 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 blah. It's like that whole thing. But if the answer is, so what? I'm willing to take the chance. All rational discussion is again brought to an end. And it's going to be hard to convince Jeff Bezos to just like voluntarily end world hunger, even though Jeff Bezos at any moment could do that.
Yeah.
Because that's very much not in Jeff Bezos' interest. And Jeff Bezos will just keep on saying, so what? I don't care. I'm willing to take the chance. I like flying around in space. If one chooses to believe that the only good is his personal good, solipsism, he can no more be reasoned out of it than he who asserts that his experience is the only experience, the sole reality. As Marx once wrote, if one chose to be an ox, one could of course turn one's back on the agonies of mankind and look after one's own skin. Finally, this argument ignores the simple fact that ethics derives from the distinctive human ability to, sorry, the notes are so small, see a contradiction between how one lives and how one can, should, or ought to live. This is the only basis of any moral imperative, of any ethical principle whatsoever. And those who, again, going back to that existential idea, that's where morality comes from. Those who do not have it are neither moral nor immoral, simply amoral. Not to see this is to fall into the trap of philosophical idealism, which puts the idea of moral obligation in the sky or in the soul itself. Such idealist moral theories always derive ethics from something other than the concrete needs, hopes, and desires of actual individuals and social groups. Christianity, like all other world religions with a strong ethical content, fails precisely to the extent that it preaches to people an idea of what they ought to do instead of basing itself on what they must do if they are to solve their real problems and fulfill their real needs.
Exactly.
Think
Pure
about
idealism.
Yeah,
Yes.
so think about, like, that's a really good example. Like Christianity has a lot of great ideas as far as ethics and morality go, but they don't tell you exactly how to implement them. And in fact, when Jesus speaks, it's kind of amazing that Jesus is not prescriptive, right? He usually answers questions with questions, or he'll give you like a kind of a riddle for you to use, for you to solipsistically arrive at your own
Jesus trying
conclusions.
to act smart.
Well, I'm not going to discount the entire. I'm just saying that Jesus. I'm not making a value judgment. You sound like a YouTube commenter now. I'm not making a value judgment of whether Jesus was good or bad or right or wrong or whatever, but Jesus never gave prescriptions, is the point. Jesus left it to the individual to work out how to apply the morality that he was offering, right? And he in fact, he often answered with like parables and stories and like metaphors, you know? So this is true. Jesus does not give you like here's what you need to do. And if he did, it wouldn't make any sense now anyway, because that book was written 2,000 years ago. Right?
The
So
material condition is like totally different now.
right. So it's probably like one of the reasons that Christianity has survived for so long is because they're very universal and very like they're very universally kind of
That's not
applicable.
The title of the book.
The title of this book is Ethics and Progress.
Ethics.
I'll
and
put the link,
progress.
and you can read it for free at archive.org. And I put the link in the chat. Once again, it's by Howard Selson. It's written in like 1965 or so, in the 60s. Okay. So the point is, we cannot use these. We don't have a universal morality.
Wait
we
a
can't
minute,
use
it's
idealism.
So sad that Jesus Christ sounds like a communist.
Mm-hmm.
But so many Christians are not communists.
I have a whole video on that. If anybody wants my
man.
video, why Jesus Christ was Jesus Christ a communist? All right, mass morality based on the needs of the mass of people. This is where we get into what I think is the home. We're getting close to home base here. This is where we talk about where we actually, as communists, as socialists, and I think as anarchists as well, derive our morality, and that is from two. We need to try to be materialist as much as possible with our morality, which is challenging because morality comes from human imagination and human ideals, based on this book, and I currently happen to agree with that. Maybe I'll change my mind one day. Hashtag change my mind. Where's my coffee mug? But we have to try to find some kind of material basis for our morality, and the masses is what the author of this book, Howard Selsom, says, that we need to try to develop mass morality. So I'm going to read a few more excerpts. These people want for themselves only what they know it is possible. So talking about, right now, Selsom is talking about the masses, right? Like the overwhelming majority of humanity, the working poor, the billions of people on Earth who work, toil, and have very little to show for it. These people want for themselves only what they know it is possible for all to have. Self-determination.
Yep.
Let's think about that in context of all the drama we've been having lately about colonialism and black nationalism and anti-imperialism.
Yeah.
Self-determination, mastery of their own resources, freedom to achieve higher material and cultural well-being. Tell me this wasn't written for this specific, like, last 2 weeks. Like, doesn't this feel like it's specifically written for the last 2 weeks?
I understand this.
Right.
Especially as a Vietnamese.
Oh, yeah, of course. Freedom to achieve higher material and cultural well-being. These masses of working people all over the earth are acting morally insofar as they are conscious of their goals and ends as truly human. Okay. Otherwise, however rightly they are acting, they are simply pursuing their own interests. It was the genius of Marx and Engels to see the world's future, a truly human world, in the struggles arising from the needs of such masses rather than in the abstract ideals of religion and philosophy. Side note, this is where I think Marx and Engels were way, way better than the fucking neoliberal idea of the end of history.
Yeah.
Because Marx and Engels didn't say that communism would be the end of history.
Yeah.
Do you know what they said about it?
I just understand the spirit of it.
Yeah.
I learned the spirit. The communism, it's just like a whole new start.
Exactly, right. That's exactly right. So you do know. Okay. Communism is not...
Yeah, I do know. Yeah.
It turns out that studying Marxism-Leninism for 16 years actually does teach you a thing or two about Marx. Okay. So the capitalists want you to believe that when the Soviet Union fell, that was the end of history. And like from now on, it's all going to be hunky-dory. It's fine. Marx and Engels said, no, that's actually just the beginning of when humans start to write our own history. Because once we finally dissolve these class divisions, we can come together as one species and start to write our own. It's taken care of, and nobody's hungry and nobody's suffering, and we don't have to worry about all this bullshit imperialist war and all these other things. We can start to write our own history. It's a much different idea than the end of history. They might sound similar, like on face value, but they're actually completely different. Because I think Marx and Engels recognize that once we eliminate class conflict in terms of like capitalism, there will still be so many other problems we have to solve. Social problems, physical problems, curing diseases, trying to go out into the stars. We're going to have so many problems that we have to solve.
Those neoliberals, they're so bold, saying that this is the end. The humanity reached the end of our development. Like, you're so ignorant. You're so fucking bold.
And capitalism is the best we can do. It's the best system we'll ever have, right?
If the capitalism truly, the best we can have, the humanity should not exist. It's just a shame.
Right.
It's a big shame.
So we're not talking about the end of history here. We're talking about having humanity able to come together and write our own history in a kind of a planned way. Not planned in terms of like planned economy and stuff, but just like having agency. Let's put it that way. Collective agency. We can decide what problems we want to tackle because there won't be this like gnawing desperation and there won't be this conflict built into like the basic conditions of humanity. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So Marx and Engels see the world's future, a truly human world, in the struggles arising from the needs of such masses rather than in the abstract ideals of religion and philosophy. Remember what Marx wrote in the Thesis on Feuerbach? Feuerbach. The Germans get mad when I say Feuerbach. It's Feuerbach. Anyway, the purpose, or like the philosophy, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly. Philosophy up until now has attempted to explain the world. The point is to change it. That's Marx's big idea, right? It has become the task of theoreticians and practical leaders ever since to bring these two strains together, to bring to struggling masses, whether in South Vietnam, the Congo, Mississippi, Havana, or New York, the clarity of moral ideas of a worthy humanity, and to bring to these time-honored, changing, and often tarnished and abused ideals the will and power and fortitude of such struggling masses. Individual moral goodness today is not good enough unless it includes a desire for a better and fuller life for all the people of the earth.
Exactly.
It must want for people what they want for themselves.
But wait a minute, God mind, fuck you. I haven't mentioned myself. Who the fuck cares about like millions of hungry people in Africa?
Right. That's the American solipsist point of view.
Yeah.
It must want for people what they want for themselves. That's important. So our class conscious morality must want for people what they want for themselves, plus whatever other values above those of good food, clothing, housing, health, social equality, dignity, and peace they may not yet want. To claim morality, we must want to seek for others all those things which men need, again, gender language, to fulfill themselves. The development of those potentialities each can enjoy together with all their neighbors of the earth. Such a principle rules out certain ideals and actions, whether, this is really important, whether of individuals or social groups. Race prejudice and any form of racial or national discrimination are outlawed by this principle on its face. So is the treatment of any persons or groups as merely means to others' ends. Such a principle, of course, rules out any form of economic exploitation, whether the use of workers as a means of private profit or for the exploitation of the resources and wealth potential by one country of the peoples of others, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of all basic stuff. So one thing that they say is this is not a question of, the whole question of do the ends justify the means, right? That's a big moral question that we ask a lot, right? And
There's
this is
famous thing that I remember exactly. I just in my show with Hakim, we show an article from The Economist when they talk about the illiberal left in the West, how it is a threat to the West and how it is threat to the classical liberalism, and they talk about like the ends, the ends just don't like justify the means exactly like this.
Right. So, yeah, that's the big moral question. And this, again, comes down to this big debate about black nationalism and overthrowing colonial oppressors and all this kind of stuff, right? So the question is, do the ends justify the means? Now, the first thing that the author of this book says is that that's a silly question because who knows what the ends are going to be? You can't predict the future. You don't know what's going to happen. Like if you're having a revolution, you really don't know what conditions are going to be like after you overthrow the oppressor, right? So we don't know if the ends justify the means, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it's really not a question of whether the ends are justifying the means. It's whether the background, what's happening right now, in other words, the material conditions justify the means.
Yeah.
So look at the Nazi oppression and the French resistance. It was justified, I think we can all agree, for the French resistance to occasionally, when the opportunity presented itself, sometimes they might have to blow up a factory and kill some of their fellow oppressed French people to stop the Germans from bombing more people and killing more people, right? It would be justified to blow up like a train line that might also be bringing food into the city, and then people would like go hungry because the food's not coming in to stop them from bringing like more troops and weapons and stuff in, right? Like you have to make these hard decisions sometimes. And the background of the brutality of the Nazi regime justified those means. It wasn't the ends that justified the means.
Right.
It was the background. It was the material conditions that justified the means.
The story of my family.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1954 with the land reforms, they took everything from my grandparents and they tortured my grandpa. But the thing is, a lot of people criticize me, I don't know why, for not be on my grandpa's side. Because my grandpa, both my grandpa and grandma, they were so freaking rich. Their family is the richest family in town for decades. I don't know for how many generations. And they've been exploiting the shit out of the whole town for so long. And so that is why I'm sorry, I'm not on the side.
Well, so I think again, it's like a hypothetical situation. Yeah. They try to take a real situation that actually happened and turn it into a hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
So I think that we could agree, and like Luna, you agree, right? And even Ho Chi Minh said that like that shouldn't have happened ideally.
Yeah, Ho Chi Minh, yeah.
Ho Chi Minh said like that shouldn't have happened and like apologized and said it was bad that brutality occurred during the land reforms, right? But it doesn't take into consideration the actual material conditions of the people that were going. So first of all, these were people who were restricted from having any kind of education for like a century because of the brutal French oppression. They were hungry. They had been tortured and brutalized themselves. They were traumatized.
Yes.
Now, And so this turns
That
into the
is
thing
why
where
I said I don't agree with my grandpa being tortured, but I understand why the peasants treated him that way.
it's like
Because
how
I look at it in their perspective.
you know how sometimes somebody, and it's like content warning, but you know, sometimes when people are victims of abuse, they will kill their abuser, not in self-defense, but they will kill their abuser, not in self-defense. And it's like, ideally they shouldn't do that, you know, like ideally there's a better solution,
Yeah.
but you can understand why somebody who's been abused for years by their husband or their parents or whatever would eventually kill that person as revenge. Now it's not, and again, this is where we get, there's a difference between this like liberal idealist morality where you say like, no, it's never justified. We're not talking about like justification and ends justifying the means. We're talking about the background and whether or not that makes the means make sense at all. At least.
It's just so fucking done. I'm so fucking done whenever I talk about the Vietnam War. People keep saying like both sides bad. I'm so fucking done with it. The USA, they came here first. They bomb us first. They spray Agent Orange. They rape our women. They torture our people. They kill 2 million of our civilians. But eventually when we shot down some B-52 like aircraft that like John fucking McCain like fly those things, and then we capture him and we give him back. But somehow they are so mad at us for like didn't treat them well. The fucking pilots that bombed us for 22 times successfully before. And you see it here? Like we have been oppressed. We've been bombed the Stone Age for decades. But once we show our madness, once we show how angry we are at those murderers, somehow we are the barbaric here.
It's like Walter Rodney said, by what standard of morality can the violence used by a slave to break his chains be considered the same as the violence of a slave master? And the answer to that question is an idealist, solipsistic, head in the clouds, liberal morality that doesn't have any kind of basis in mass movements and in the material world. So, all right, let's keep moving forward because there's a few dots we need to connect and people might be lost right now. I think we kind of we kind of skipped a little ahead of the underlying framework. So let's go back to the text. All right, we're getting close to the finish here. Okay. No people. Okay, here's really, really important. No people or nation has ever given up, abrogated, surrendered its right to use every means in its power to achieve its liberation. And there's no society which forbids itself the means necessary for its maintenance or perpetuation. Does that make sense? If you're going to get wiped out, you're going to do whatever you can to survive.
Exactly.
And it's justified. I think anyone would agree with that, right?
It's like
self-defense.
It's
self-defense. It's like, would you kill in self-defense? Yeah, I would. Okay. Of course. The question, does the end justify the means, this is so important, folks. And this is why, I feel like this was written in the 60s for us right now at this moment. It just feels so for us. I'm so glad I found this book. Does the end justify the means is too abstract to be intelligently discussed.
Exactly.
As Corliss Lamont has well said, to ask it is like asking whether any object is worth its price. No sane person would dream of answering such a question. You would ask, if I said, hey, Luna, is an object worth its price? That's the question you're asking. It's such an abstract question.
Just look at this. Look at my cute
Is it worth the price?
Here.
Right? You would ask what objects are being talked about, what price is being asked for them, right?
Yeah.
Those are some basic questions you would ask, right?
And the thing is based on the perspective. It is worth it to this person, but it's not to a different person.
The very posing of this question in this universal and abstract form puts it into the class of such questions as, is life worth living? This was once answered in a popular American magazine with the quip, not if that's the way you feel about it. The real question, of course, concerns the kind of life that is worth living and the circumstances under which it is lived. As Hegel once wrote, life has a value only when it has something valuable as its object, which is to say that the value of life can be found only in life itself. Asking the question in this generalized form already raises insoluble problems. The same is true of the question whether the end justifies the means. Means are good only when they have good as their end, but this brings us only to the threshold of the problem. So another aspect of this is like Luna's grandfather getting tortured by those North Vietnamese soldiers, right?
Yes, and peasants.
Yeah. I certainly can't, as a white American living in 2021, I can't conceive of what it would have been like to be those peasants, first of all.
Yeah.
Now, there are people on this planet that might be able to, because there are people that are still like as oppressed as them, obviously.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, I cannot put myself in their shoes. I don't know what it was like to be beaten, oppressed, have like
Constant
starving.
hunger.
Yeah, because some rich jerk was benefiting from colonial oppression, like severe oppression of my people. I cannot put myself in those shoes. I don't know what it would be like. So it's very easy for me to say, as a comfortable white American who has had relatively little oppression in my life and relatively little pain and suffering compared to those people, to like try to put myself in their shoes and understand what they were going through and what led them to make those decisions, right? That doesn't mean that I'm saying that what they did was justified or that blah, 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 but I'm just saying, can you know, unless you've been there, what you would do, right? Because that's another question. What would you do in that situation? I don't know what I would do. I don't know if I would really be as tame and reserved as possible. To me, so for me, the solution to that problem is not to hurt and abuse and traumatize and oppress and just make people so miserable that they would be pushed to do things like that, right? It's pretty obvious. Like, instead of worrying about whether or not it's okay for the slave to murder the master, why not just avoid that situation altogether by abolishing slavery?
Don't be slave masters.
Right. That's, to me, like you're coming at it from the wrong end, to me. Because I don't know what I would do, to be perfectly honest.
So like by asking that question, those people, they are justifying being an oppressor. And they are demonizing the oppressed people.
It's victim blaming. It's classic victim blaming. I'm about to go back to the text. We got a couple super chats. Let me check them real quick. Do we have a P.O. box? I have a P.O. box in the USA, but I won't be able to get to it physically until I can actually visit the USA, which will hopefully be sometime next year. And mailing things to Vietnam is very, very tricky. We have a lot of problems with that.
Yeah, especially during this pandemic.
I don't know what you got going on, but if you
so
email me at emericanjohnson@gmail, I can answer any questions you might have about that.
emericanjohnson@gmail.com. Thank you.
Lasu says, non-compete, Luna, we indigenous feel you deeply on that. Yeah. Yes, there are Mexican. Great question. Very important. Like, you speak to my heart. This is one of the important questions of life. There are excellent Mexican restaurants in Vietnam and in Da Nang, but I haven't been able to go to them for over a month because of lockdown.
I love burritos. I love tacos.
That is the worst thing about our material conditions.
Enchiladas.
All right. Let's go back to the text and let's wrap this up. We're almost done, folks. You've been very patient. This is probably the deepest we've ever gone in a BREADCAST, right?
Yeah.
All right. Does the end justify the means is too abstract? We read that. We read all that. Brings us to the threshold of the problem. So this is where we finally get to the materialism. You have to go through the masses to find the materialism, is the point. Okay? The only concrete form of the question is, given accepted ends, how can we determine what means are justified by them? So in other words, if we can say for the sake of argument that we will get what we want, what would be justified to do to get there? This is really brilliant, I think. Follow me. We can put this in simpler terms. Suppose we all agree on a broad social goal as good. This means that we really want it. This qualification immediately eliminates any fraudulent mouthing of phrases about how good something would be if only we didn't have to make any sacrifices to achieve it.
Yeah.
The goal could be anything from desegregation to national independence, or from the elimination of illiteracy to socialism. Then it would be possible to discuss quite clearly and objectively the best way of reaching it. And this is something that Luna and I have said in our streams time and time again. Look at where you are right now in your material conditions. Look at where you want to go. And by the way, your material conditions include objective social relations like racism, bigotry, capitalism, all these things, right? Look at where you are, where you want to be, communist society, whatever. And then look at and then try to figure out how do we get from where we are to where we want to go.
Exactly, like just when I met you, the first day, and I know like we just knew each other, but I want to have a future with you. That was why like I said like, okay, we're gonna have more dates, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that in detail. And slowly I tracked him.
Yeah.
And EJ is here.
Right. I passed the material test. Luna had the ideal of marrying me. But she had to test that theoretical ideal with reality. And it's a dialectical process. You keep going back to that first basis and checking your first basis assumptions. Do I want to, well, at first I guess it was like date. Do I want to date this person? Do I want to keep dating this person? And then as you find more and more material evidence, then it starts to evolve. And you go back to that first basis. Okay, I know I want to date him. Now, do I want to marry him? Move forward. All right, now you're married to me. And it's like, okay, I know that I married him. I wanted to marry him. Do I want to stay married to him? And that's where Luna's at right now, I guess, in this dialectical process. So, but this is got married to EJ. It's not the end goal here because I'm moving to a new stage. That like, do I want to stay in the marriage? It's been a development now, and the thing about it is, this is really so it's like some extent of ideal. And this is the brilliant thing about materialism, dialectical materialism specifically, is that it solves for the problem of whether...
You remember?
Didn't she lock him in the house one time? She's locked me in the house like 3 times, but I finally got back and locked her in the house one time. So we're not even, but I still get locked in the house a couple more times. All right. But so because we're taking as our first basis of what morality is, the fact that morality stems from our ability to imagine a different world than the one we have, there will be an ideal component to morality. It's inescapable, right? We have to imagine what kind of world we want to live in. But the point is, to become materialist morality, dialectical materialist reality, we have to look at where we are and where we want to go and figure out materially how we get from here to there. Okay?
Exactly.
Does that make sense? I think that's really important. I don't want to gloss over that because that's like that's probably the most important thing to get here.
And that is like a very basic concept, a transitional period.
Yes. And it's like, so you could make the argument that all morality is idealist because it comes from our imagination. But what we have to do as dialectical materialists is insert materialism back into the process of morality. Because morality is a process. Ethics are a process in motion. And we have to incorporate the material world into that process so that it becomes a dialectical reflection from material to ideal, back and forth. Check the material, go back to the ideal. Check the material, go back to the ideal. It's just like praxis and theory. Yeah. Praxis and theory. You do the praxis, you go back and you check the theory. You do the praxis, you go back and check the theory. Yeah. Dialectical process as you develop forward.
Like Gawker say, like, I need to work on thinking dialectically more. It's difficult to adjust your whole way of thinking.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, you can.
Yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, I'm still going through it, but it's really amazing when you start to think in things in terms of their relations and the ways that things develop. And it feels to me like it's like opening up this whole new world of analysis. And it's making me realize how much time we're wasting with these like silly debates about hypotheticals. Okay. Now let's get back to the text. Okay.
Wait a minute.
What?
This is how the rumors start.
Did I miss something? Did Luna and EJ say they're rethinking whether to remain married? No.
This is how the rumors start.
No, but like that's where we are. There's nothing like, I guess we could also eventually have to think about whether or not we want to like propagate children. We're not there now. Currently, the material conditions are not met for having kids. All right. So
back to the point.
All right. So you can have any kind of goal, segregation, desegregation, national independence, whatever. Then it will be possible to discuss quite clearly and objectively the best way of reaching that goal. Okay. Now, suppose we should all agree that a given end was supposedly good for humans, but disagreed hopelessly on whether or not we could attain it without violating fundamental standards concerning means. The very online divorce of Luna and EJ. Y'all better donate for that one.
You better donate a lot. And you have to compete on donating.
Yeah.
You have to donate for Luna or EJ.
Because that's going to be a painful stream.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Back to this text. Okay.
Yeah.
What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Luna tells me to stay focused, and then she...
Focus.
All right. We could, of course, differ greatly on this. Okay, so the goal may be anything from... well, I already read that like 3 times. Now, suppose we should all agree that a given end was supremely good for mankind, but disagreed hopelessly on whether it was attainable without violating fundamental standards concerning means. We all know we want communism, but at what cost? Right? That's the big liberal question. At what cost?
At what cost? The cost of the death to fascists and the elimination of the bourgeois class. That's the cost.
Right. Now we would then, but this is really good because this gives you a good framework for how to solve this problem. Okay. We can't agree on whether it's attainable without violating fundamental standards. We would then be in a serious dilemma from which we would have to escape either by 1, reevaluating the end as the highest good. Is communism really the highest good? Is there something else that's better? Or changing our standards of acceptable means. So okay, communism is good enough, and this actually it's worth doing to get there. Or finding new means by which the agreed upon end can be achieved. This is very obvious, but not so much really, actually. So if we have something we want, decolonizing South Africa, creating equitable society in South Africa.
But at what cost?
At what cost? Is it worth the means? And if it's not, okay, is it a good enough thing to want? A, yes or no? Yes, it's really good. We really, really want that. Okay, B, is the means of whatever? What is the claim that was made? Kicking all the white people out. Is that worth it?
Land back.
Is that worth it? Okay, we can say yes or no. Now, if we say no, then we have to find some other means of doing it. That's the point they're making. Okay? All right. Now,
a super chat from Kyle Rapp. Thank you so much.
Just wanted to give some encouragement and thanks. Well, thank you. And I'd like to encourage you, Kyle.
Yes.
Whatever you're doing right now, you're going to do great. I believe in you. See, it's dialectical. Mm-hmm. Kyle encourages us. We encourage Kyle.
Yeah.
Reflection.
Yeah.
All right. Which side are you on, right? This is what we're talking about. And we're going back to the Nazis again. While terrorism violates all normal codes of moral behavior, it was unconditionally supported by the most morally sensitive people when used against the Nazis by resistance forces in the occupied countries. At the same time, the brutal methods used by the Ku Klux Klan and other rabid Southern anti-integrationists strike all decent people with horror, not merely because of the beatings and bombings and shootings, but because their ends are so miserably evil. They have had all the forces of the law behind them, but the moment that black people and federal law oppose special privileges, these whites have, quote unquote, enjoyed. And remember, this is the whole idea that to somebody with a lot of privilege, equality feels like oppression. That's kind of what they're saying.
Yeah, when you are so high up, equality means that you have to, you are benefiting from white privilege.
Right.
But when we dismantle white privilege, you would feel oppressed.
Yeah. So as soon as this privilege gets revoked, the privileges they've enjoyed as a heritage of slavery, they defy law, order, and the rights of all others, whether these constitute a minority or a majority. If, on the other hand, black people had no other recourse, no other method of struggle open to them, then the only course possible would be the armed defense of their rights. Okay?
Yeah.
If there's no other recourse, if the Ku Klux Klan won't stop being violent, then of course black people will have to resort to armed defense of their rights. And the moral conscience of most of humans would support them.
Violence is the answer of the unheard people.
Yes.
Who said that?
Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
Violence is the language. No, it's rioting. Rioting is the language.
Rioting is the language of.
But you could expand that out to violence is the language of people who are not being given any other recourse.
Vietnamese, Ho Chi Minh, and a lot of people will be saying so many times already, we don't want violence. We just want peace. We want to live in a country that our people can have equality and peace and freedom and self-determination, and that's it. But we have to stand up. We have to fight back because the USA just constantly wants to commit genocide.
They wanted it so much that they lied to get it. They fabricated the Gulf of Tonkin incident to get the war. So that's how much America wanted the violence. So you can't blame the Vietnamese people for fighting back, right? Okay, so then this is the most important line. The question here in this situation where we have the Ku Klux Klan just flat out brutally oppressing and murdering. You can widen that out to white supremacists brutally oppressing black people in the USA.
Aw, thank you so much.
So then if you're in that situation and the question is, or the only alternative that puts black people in the alternative in the situation where the only alternative they have is to fight back with violence.
Yeah.
So then the question then is not, does the end justify the means? The question is, whose side are you on? And that's what really struck me in that debate between Vosh
Yes,
and Professor
whose
Flowers.
side are you on? Are you on the side of the white supremacists?
Now, and I'm going to say one more thing that's kind of specific to that debate, but it kind of ties everything together. Because the one thing that Vosh kept going back to again and again and again was, you can't blame all those white people, every individual white person, they're just living their lives. They have nothing to do with it. Okay. You can't say that they're all colonizers, right? That's what Vosh says. Okay. And removing all white people from South Africa on a very surface level might sound like white genocide, or it might sound like the same thing as, but here's the thing. And the reason it sounds bad to white people, right? The reason it sounds bad is because we would think, surely not every single white person is going to choose to side with oppression. Surely not every single white person is going to choose to keep their privilege and fight for that privilege instead of going over to the other side
like
and
John
fighting.
Brown.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So the white people are saying there's going to be some white people in South Africa that are going to want to fight with the oppressed and join and cross sides and become a race traitor and give up their privilege to fight for a world in which they don't have that special privilege, like John Brown did, right? But that's not fucking guaranteed at all. And in fact, historically, it's very rare for oppressors to go over and join the other side. In fact, in the Vietnam War, Luna and I tried very hard to find any examples. For 10 years, the United States of America had heavy occupation in Vietnam. For 10 years, Vietnam bombarded them with pamphlets and flyers that they dropped from the sky.
Hanoi Hannah.
They had Hanoi Hannah broadcasting, and John McCain said he listened to her all the time. They were saying, put down your rifles, leave the front lines, come over to us, live peacefully with us. We will accept you. We'll accept you. You don't have to fight for them. And not one single person in 10 years. How many people fought for the USA? How many American soldiers fought in Vietnam? 2,700,000. 2,700,000 Americans were in Vietnam for a decade. And from what Luna and I can tell, not one single person, despite the constant offer to cross over and fight with the North Vietnamese, not one American went over and joined the North. Now, when like Jane Fonda went over and visited there, she was welcomed because she was like on their side.
Yeah.
Now, earlier with the French, there was the Greek guy. What's his name?
I forgot his name.
Hold on. Luna will find the name. But anyway, there was a Greek person who fought for the French in the Dien Bien Phu. Wasn't it during the Battle of Dien Bien Phu?
Yeah.
And a couple of other people from the French that went over and joined. And guess what? The Vietnamese welcomed him, made him an officer. He was he's still until the day he died, which was this year. He just died a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Until the day he died, he had a really great, wonderful relationship with the Vietnamese people. In Haiti, when they had the big slave rebellion, there were Polish mercenaries who crossed over and joined the Haitians. And guess what? They were welcomed, right?
Costas Sarantidis.
Costas Sarantidis was a Greek person, one of the very, very handful, literally less than probably 5 people who left the Europeans and the Americans to go fight with the Vietnamese.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, people who are colonizers and who have a massive amount of privilege do not typically, it's very rare for them to cross over and join the oppressed. John Brown was very much an outlier, right?
Yeah.
There are not that many John Browns in the world.
Yeah.
You have to, and that's kind of what this conception of the class character of ethics says, is that you're going to generally fight for your own class interests. That's just like a material reality. It's going to be very rare for people to fight to have less privilege. Now, it's not impossible, it's not unheard of, and there are examples. And but we have to think about things in terms of material reality and what's most likely, right? Now, right now in South Africa, we've shown the statistics time and time again. black people live much more precariously than white people do in South Africa. Now, there have been white South Africans who have crossed over and joined and even gone to prison and that sort of thing to further the cause of, racial equality in South Africa. But most South Africans are not doing that, right? So our morality cannot be based on hypothetical, idealist, personal morality and solipsism where we say, well, what if this, what if that? We have to look at where we are right now and where we want to be.
Yeah. Vietnam, we have a list of people of soldiers that joined the Vietnam communists, and this is all the nationalities of them.
Okay.
They French, Germany,
Mm-hmm.
Austria, Belgium, Greece, Italian, Spain,
Well, hold
Denmark.
on. These are internationalists, right?
International, yes.
These are I'm saying these are internationalists, meaning that they were not in the French military and then they crossed over. They specifically went to Vietnam.
These people they joined the French army.
Oh, and then they left.
And then they left.
Okay.
Well, and they like Denmark,
Oh.
Poland, Czech, Ukraine, Tunisia, Morocco,
Algeria.
Algeria, and yes, none of them was American.
Right.
None.
And it says it was all from 1945 to 1954, right?
Yes.
So all that happened from 1945 to 1954.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Not one single American did. Now, the other thing is, and all those people got welcomed into the Vietnamese bosom, right? Like they were welcome. They weren't like turned away or whatever. So, but you could look at it and say, when all of those Americans who refused to join the Vietnamese side for 10 years got kicked out of Vietnam, was that a white genocide? Was that a genocide of Americans? Was that ethnic cleansing? It's fucking absurd to compare that to ethnic cleansing or genocide.
And we even call those people the new Vietnamese when
Yeah.
we join
Oh
our
yeah,
team.
the Japanese.
Những người Việt Nam mới,
The
new
Japanese did it a
Vietnamese.
lot too.
Yes.
Not a lot. There were like 20 people, I think.
Oh, 200?
200. Okay, but that's still not a lot compared to
Yeah,
the like
yeah.
thousands and thousands. But when the Japanese were occupying Vietnam in the 1940s, there was a small group of like a couple hundred Japanese people who did join the Vietnamese and fought the resistance war with the Vietnamese, and they became like honorary Vietnamese people. And I think their descendants still live in Vietnam,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. They
Yeah.
are descendants living in Vietnam. Like, most of them came back.
Yeah.
Especially when we had the war with the USA, we encourage those people to go back to their own countries for their own safety.
Was it genocide? Was it genocide against the Japanese? Was it ethnic cleansing when the Vietnamese fought to kick them out? Obviously it was not, right? Now, I think that maybe a response. Now, at this point, it's like I have to just kind of extrapolate what people might say to this. Well, that's different because it was a war. A war is not the same as what's happening in South Africa. Well, how is it different exactly? Because do you not recognize that, for instance, poverty is violence? If you take it as a given that poverty is a form of violence and that if people are starving to death and dying of treatable diseases when they don't have to be, because some people hold way too much wealth and don't help to distribute it to people, to children who are dying of starvation and that sort of thing, right? That's a form of warfare. In fact, it's a form of genocide, right? And people who participate willingly in that power structure, yes, by living their lives and going about their day-to-day lives, they are complicit in that to some extent or another. And so the question we have is, from the South African black perspective, what are their ends? Again, go back to that formula. It's a good formula. What are the ends? The ends are equality, or at the very least, better material conditions so that black children aren't starving to death, black people have the resources to have a reasonably good quality of life, right? I guess we could say that that's like the ends, right? And this is where we are right now in these material conditions in South Africa, right? So the question is not, do the ends justify the means? The question is, does the current situation justify any specific means? And then we're getting into a situation where we can actually have a conversation that actually makes some kind of fucking sense. Yeah. Now, when Professor Flowers and Vosh were having their conversation, it was so hypothetical and so idealist and so disconnected from reality that all Professor Flowers could say in a reasonable manner is, well, we have to look at the situation and listen to the people.
We should let those oppressed people listen to them. And that is it.
The reason she couldn't answer the question directly is because what's the fucking situation? What's the material condition?
Exactly.
How can I tell you if violence is justified or not? It's like asking, is the price of an object justified? It's like, what's the fucking price? What's the object? What do I need to, what's my situation? Like, for instance, would I pay $10,000 for a tractor? No, because I don't need a fucking tractor because I'm not a farmer, right? But if I was a farmer and buying that tractor could save me, 1,000 hours of labor every year, then yes. Do you not see how obvious it is that you can't just say, is a tractor worth $10,000? You can't just ask that question. You can't ask, is a tractor worth $10,000?
Yeah.
It's an absurd question. It's as absurd as saying, is kicking all the white people out of South Africa justified to end colonialism in South Africa?
In what context?
What's the context? I don't, it's not going to happen right, nobody, it's not on the table right now,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, it's a very hypothetical bullshit question that we don't need to be wasting our time talking about, is what I'm saying. And the only reason you would is so that you could try to build up some kind of judgment of whether or not somebody meets your personal moral standards. But remember that morality in this materialist mass class character perception of it that we're talking about here is very dependent on the material conditions and the people in the class that you're discussing and what they're facing right now. That's the point I'm trying to make. These debates are bullshit because it's all based on completely idealist, hypothetical nonsense that has nothing to do with where we are and where we want to go. That's the problem. That's why there are all these, it's a cycle of drama after drama after drama. Because when Professor Flowers went in there, Professor Flowers knew that you can't just make a carte blanche answer of whether or not something is justified. Did the ends justify the means? No, you have to know the background. You have to know the material conditions. You have to know the now.
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of the hypothetical future. It's a matter of what's happening right now. If the South African white people started to if they all got together and built like a paramilitary organization and started to try to take back over the country, go back to the old school of apartheid and do it through violence, that's a hypothetical, right? That's a hypothetical. In that situation, obviously, it would be fine for the black people to take up arms, just like they did originally to end apartheid, right? That's a hypothetical. But now we can get into the world. See how annoying this is? Now we're in the world of millions and millions of hypotheticals. Well, what if? Well, what if
this?
What if that? What if that? What if this? It's completely a waste of our fucking time.
I can just spend
and
my
attention.
entire life just working on the fucking imagination ability in my own brain say what if to dunk on you, to just find a reason to not agree with you. The agenda here is so clear.
Oh yeah.
This people like Vosh, is just not when we don't want any person drama. Vosh it's not just a one person. We're talking like
oh yeah, it's not. By the way,
movement.
I'm only using the example of Vosh because
it's
and don't and,
easy
and
for you to.
I gotta say this.
I think.
Wait a minute. We gotta say this really quick.
Oh.
Don't harass Vosh. This is not about Vosh, really, because Vosh is just one of many leftists. Luna gets comments like this every single day on her channel. So it's certainly not just Vosh. It's not a personal thing. But I'm just using that specific example of that specific debate because I think it showed so many of the issues that we're talking about here so crystal clear of exactly what we're talking about. So
you show what if with glue.
That's mean to Glue. Glue's not that much of an idealist.
So we can see very clear those liberals, neoliberals, they are arguing on the perspective of white supremacists.
Luna, what if
that is they are arguing for the fucking white supremacists? That is why it is so unrelatable to the actual material conditions of the society of the oppressed people. It's so unrelated that they have to bring it into a hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
Like warfare, hypothesis, fight.
Well,
so they can dunk on us.
Here's the thing.
So not materialist.
That is a great format for spectacle that people get really drawn into, and it's exciting, and there's a lot of conflict is drama, and drama is exciting, and there's a financial incentive too, because people love watching that kind of shit. So anyway, that basically concludes my thoughts on morality on the left and why we're having so much infighting over things that just don't matter. I think that the debate format itself is flawed in so many ways. Structurally, it's problematic because we have like one person who is the host and the moderator and the celebrity that owns the influencer who's influencing the entire audience. And that does have like psychological impact to people. But beyond that, more importantly, in terms of morality, it is just spectacle that is this solipsistic scenario where we just clash with hypotheticals against each other, and then it becomes just this sophistic. I'm sorry I keep using these silly words, but they're shorthanding the fact that we have, it's just a competition between like hypothetical situations that has no bearing on the material world. And it's
and if you really want to fight in that war, I can make up all the crazy shit about you too.
It's needlessly divisive, and it goes back to that Malatesta quote. Let me find that Malatesta quote, because I think it's really good. Go back to an anarchist for once. It's this one? Nope, that's not it. Hierarchy, yeah. Hierarchy. Malatesta said, yeah, if we anarchists could achieve the revolution of our own, or if the socialists could on their own, we could enjoy the luxury of each acting independently and of perhaps quarreling. But the revolution will be made by all the proletariat, all the people, whereas the socialists and anarchists are a numerical minority, though they appear to enjoy the sympathy of the people as a whole. For us to be divided even where there are grounds for unity, please listen, for us to be divided even where there are grounds for unity would mean dividing the workers, cooling off their sympathies, as well as making them less likely to follow the socialistic line common to both socialists and anarchists, and which is at the heart of revolution. Listen, it is up to the revolutionaries, especially the anarchists and socialists, to see to this by not exaggerating the differences. I'm going to end the quote there because that's the most important part. You are dividing the class uselessly by creating these tense environments where we're putting a gun to someone's head and saying, listen, you fucking Vietnamese person, I'm going to ask you a series of hypothetical questions.
What?
And whether or not you answer to my liking will depend on whether or not you're going to get fucking harassed by my audience. Are you ready to play the game of debate?
Fuck you.
I just got counter-imperialisted. That's the scenario that they're creating. I'm going to tell you a list of hypothetical scenarios, and then you have to guess the right answer, whether or not me and my audience will agree with you, or whether or not I will steer my audience to agree with you on these hypothetical situations that have no bearing on the material world, by the way. And whether or not you answer to our liking will determine whether or not you get harassed or not on the internet by thousands of people. That's debate. That's what debate is. And if you think...
You have to fight against my hypothesis, imaginary, like conclusions, or else thousands of my audience just go harass you forever.
That's America. That's American fucking individualistic, solipsistic bullshit morality that has no basis in the material world. We need to create mass class character, materialistic morality that focuses on what is before us right now and stop needlessly dividing the working class with this debate
Can
morality.
you say it in Nikki Bell's voice, like the debate bros, Nikki Bell's voice?
What if, Luna, what if Vietnam suddenly became the most powerful, wealthy nation in the world? Then what would you do? Then would it be okay for Americans to invade Vietnam? What if Vietnam suddenly started deporting all the white people out of Vietnam? Would that be white genocide? Would that be ethnic cleansing? Would you agree with that? Would you be okay if Vietnam suddenly deported all the white people? Even though there's absolutely no fucking indication that that's ever going to happen? There,
What
I could be a
if
debate, bro.
I just make a fucking goat stew tonight?
What if you make a goat?
Goat stew.
Goat stew? Are you threatening Neckybeard? Look, if you're going to threaten Neckybeard, you got to go get the actual puppet. This is a little cowardly talking about Neckybeard behind his back like that.
You're right.
All right. We're way over time.
Kind of hungry.
I would suggest, Lena, if you, I don't know, this is just an idea, but for your Mooncast this week, would you go and like research some of Ho Chi Minh's ideas about morality? Because I'd be very curious to see what Ho Chi Minh has to say.
We called it revolutionary morality.
I know, that's why I'm saying, because I know he talked about it a lot. So I think maybe you could focus on that on your Mooncast.
Okay.
That's my way of doing a commercial for Luna that everyone should go and
That is why
subscribe to
you
Luna.
should watch both BREADCAST and Mooncast.
They dialectically influence each other.
Yes.
They do. They do. Also, one last shout out. Camaraderie is live. If you're a creator, if you do streaming or make videos, or if you're an artist or anything like that, or if you have any kind of project, go to camaraderie.co.
Yes, shout out to Camaraderie.
I'm gonna
This is an
throw it up.
awesome alternative to Patreon.
I'm actually going to throw it up with my with non-compete because why not? Because why not? Do a co-promo. You could go if you want
Yeah.
to camaraderie.co/non-compete or camaraderie.co/lunaoi and donate to us. Or you can just go to camaraderie.co and sign up and become a creator there. It's in alpha right now. There's no it's not like Patreon yet because they don't have the special like insider perks yet. Right now it's all just public posts and it's really just like a donation box, but it will be developed further over time. We're in the alpha mode, but I'm very excited. I'm very glad. We had an interview with them a while back. If you go to Non-Compete Live in the archives, you can see our interview with them where they talk a lot about their anti-imperialist, anti-fascist, anti-capitalist philosophy. And they're cool people. They onboarded us, and it was like I really felt like they cared about the community that they're building in a way that like other platforms definitely do not.
Yeah.
They were asking us questions about like, they were asking us like, whether or not we're willing to be on the same platform with people who we might necessarily agree with. They asked us, how we would want to contribute, whether we wanted to take any kind of leadership positions. Yeah. We don't. By the way, that was the answer to that question. We said like we'll probably just be going with the flow, but we're willing to contribute as much as we're able to. But anyway, it's just a very cool, like more real community kind of feeling there. So anyway, camaraderie.co, go check it out. Let's raid somebody.
Also, shout out to Overthrow's newest video.
Oh God, yes! Thank you for reminding me. Everyone, Overthrow Media just has a really funny. Their most recent.
Really funny.
Wow, that's a talent. They're playing the freaking. That's really funny. Wow.
Yeah, just go to Twitch.
There's a woman playing the violin with rabbit ears and playing like an old game show theme song. I got mesmerized for a moment. That's like so many of my interests combined in one video.
Is it your kink?
It might be my kink, Luna. We might need to get you a violin and sit you down in front of some old game shows. Just saying. Overthrow Media. Everyone check out BP's most recent video. Luna and I make a small cameo in it.
It's a surprise cameo.
So please check it out. It's about the Vosh and Professor Flowers situation. I found it pretty funny.
Funny, educating.
It spoke to some of the things we talked about today. It was kind of a different tack though. But anyway, let's see who. I really think that this violin person is talented. But anyway, we're not going to raid the violin person. We're going to raid Silver Spook, of course. Everyone. Oh, Silver Spook's talking about the dole.
Shit.
Implying Luna already. Oh yeah, Luna does have bunny ears.
I do have bunny ears.
Luna has all manner of ears. All right. We're revealing too much about our power level. Okay. Silver Spook is talking about the Dole family, colonialists of Hawaii. So please, everyone, say hello to Silver Spook for us if you're watching on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for being with us and sticking through this extremely dense and kind of dry subject matter. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you pick something up. Check out that book, Ethics in Progress, by
Ethics and Progress.
Howard Selsom on
Say the link in the
Archive.org.
chat again.
I'll share the link one more time.
Yeah.
Here's the book if you want to read it. I recommend you do. Okay, everybody. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.
Bye.
And bye-bye, YouTube people.
I want
Let's
to
eat
make
lunch.
hummus today.
Hummus time!